second down and 8. Penn State leads by a touchdown. Leonard throws wide open. Jaden Greathouse avoided Jalen Reed and scores.
You're going to see Cam.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
From the 2, Irish trying to take the lead. He handed it off to Love, who stays on his feet. Love is in the end zone.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Howard, how aggressive will they be in the final seconds? Henderson can make a house call from anywhere. And look out! He just might do it! Davian Henderson gets momentum back for Ohio State. 75 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Power formation. Judkins. Touchdown. Ohio State takes the lead.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Pressure comes. Sawyer knocked it out and picks it up. Jack Sawyer headed down the sidelines. Ohio State scoop and score and dagger from 82 yards.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Thursday afternoon, 365 Sports on YouTube, 365 Sports YT on Twitter, where you can watch us there live. And also, if you haven't and you want to, you can download the app, Sikkim 365 app, available to get the video and also the audio. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left. And we take you up until 6 o'clock today. Sam Kahn from theathletic.com. We'll have Joe Theismann, former Notre Dame College Football Hall of Famer. He'll join us today. John Talty of CBS Sports. Craig's off the radar. Mickey Spagnola on the Cowboys and Paul Catalina's top 5. And also Texas Tech quarterback Graham Harrell will join us today early on in the 5 o'clock hour. And in fact, let's start with that right there. Yesterday, college football's Hall of Fame class of 2025 was released. I mentioned 3 of the names that at the time were a part of the Big 12 in some way. Michael Huff of UT is on that list. Also Steve Slayton at West Virginia. Before West Virginia entered the Big 12, and also I mentioned Graham Harrell, the record-breaking quarterback. There's the note that Texas Tech put up, the Hall of Famer himself, who is a part of that class. He will be a part of this show.
Yeah, congratulations to all the people that are in there. They all earned it for sure. It's a really cool list. I mean, Graham Harrell, Jim Kleinsasser, I told you was my favorite name in there, just because he was I don't know if there's anybody like him anymore, because he was like an H-back in the NFL, but North Dakota State tight end and just gigantic load of a human being. Really, really cool names. Ryan Yarbrough from Wyoming, I think people forgot about him, how many catches that he had over his career there. So it's cool to see that list. And Nick Saban is, of course, on it. I don't know why. I mean, you have 7 national titles. I mean, I think you should have 8 to get in, but whatever.
Well, he needed to retire for them to put him in, and he retired, and it's less than, a year later, he goes into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I don't know how they do their awards banquet. They certainly don't induct these guys all at the same time, right, because it's a pretty big class.
No, actually, I believe in December it's going to be about a year. They do that National Football Foundation. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it must be
it's over 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be like a streamlined or kind of extended deal, because there are a lot of names that are attached, but it's great. There's a lot of fond memories that get brought up looking over the list of names. I mean, Graham Harrell, certainly. I think most of our minds immediately goes to the Michael Crabtree touchdown against Texas. I mean, a play that will live in Texas Tech infamy and college football infamy, and we know what it cost UT and cost, Colt McCoy in terms of, like, legacy and things like that. So, I mean, Graham Harrell certainly had an incredible career there at Tech. Michael Huff was a stud. I mean, he was just a baller. He was great. Haloti Ngata, I mean, absolute freak show and incredible pro and dominant. Steve Slayton, you mentioned, that was the pre-Big 12 run for the Mountaineers, but what a time it is for your 40-year-old Mountaineer fans or people in that bracket, because all the guys who were great when West Virginia was last really great are now being honored for things because they're just getting to that age. And then you've got Rich Rod coming back, so it's kind of bringing all of this this warm and fuzzy from the good days back in those early 2000s, and maybe setting them up to kind of carry that over in some form or fashion and rekindle that with Rich Rodriguez back in the saddle for the Mountaineers. But that's cool to see him getting his flowers. Steve Slayton was a dude. Michael Vick, come on. All these guys we're watching today, they all have some seedling that was planted by Michael Vick back in the day, all right? A lot of quarterbacks in the NFL have taken cues from him or kind of extend from his playing tree, if you will. A guy who's probably amongst the most influential players in today's current football when you look at the impact on the game and all that, and just the influence of players who grew up watching him. And like you said, the list goes on. And Paul mentioned Nick Saban. Didn't take him much of a wait to start getting, celebrated and enshrined in some of these halls. It's odd, though. There was a name that Paul didn't bring up.
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer also on this list. Oddly enough, you did not mention him.
Well,
I don't know why.
Three-time national champion you should be in if you've won 3.
Yeah.
He actually had a better winning percentage as a coach at, what was he at, obviously Florida, Ohio State, Bowling Green prior to that, Utah. He had a winning percentage of 85% compared to Saban's 80%. Saban took over a couple of places that needed to be rejuvenated along the way, including Michigan State. They were okay when he was there. His first job was at the University of Toledo.
It's a pretty star-studded class, man.
Michael
that's
Strahan,
a lot of
did you mention Strahan?
You could just do a couple guys there and have a class, but it's a bunch of people that are pretty high impact.
One note about Graham Harrell. He'll join us a little bit after 5 today. He's 5th all-time passing yards in college football history behind Case Keenum, Dylan Gabriel, Timmy Chang, who was at Hawaii, and Landry Jones at Oklahoma. He had 15,793 yards career passing, and he did it all at Texas Tech. Landry Jones did all of his at Oklahoma, Chang all at Hawaii, Keenum all at Houston, and then Dylan Gabriel with UCF Oklahoma, and also this past year with Oregon. So there we are with the class of 2025. They'll be inducted, honored next year, late this year, in December. Also, former Troy coach Larry Blakely and Larry Cover from Northwestern College in Iowa, also a part of the College Football Hall of Fame class. This story here is everything that Jerry wants. And Ed Werder, who is a phenomenal journalist, reporter, has worked all over the country, he's worked at ESPN. We've known him, we've had him on. He is the one that put this out here. So when he does it, it to me has a little bit more oomph to it. Not that others can't do it either. That Jerry, if he offers Deion, he has people around him that are encouraging him to pursue it, and that Jones is enamored. I can see why he would be enamored with the idea that this story will be 24/7 until whatever the Cowboys decide to do.
Yeah, it really helped. They have interviewed Robert Saleh, I believe, or they're scheduled to interview Robert Saleh. They've requested to interview Leslie Frazier as well, who's with the Bills now. So there is, but Leslie, one of the better defensive minds in football. So you see kind of where they're leaning. Look, Deion Sanders played what defense? So Jerry does this thing where he goes with a thing for a little while. He's had 2 offensive head coaches in a row, and maybe now he's like, oh, okay, well, enough of that. Let's get a defensive coach, and then I'll handpick some random offensive coordinator for that guy and be like, who's going to work good with you? Right here, this guy. He's unbelievable. You'll love him. You'll love him. You get to pick 20% of your own staff. It'll be fun. It'll be great. Don't worry about it. So
I don't know if this has really much, but if Ed Werder's reporting it, he's getting it from pretty good sources because that's what he does.
It's a very interesting story that obviously with the parties involved is going to get a lot of chatter, and I'm sure Jerry loves that part of it. I'm sure Deion loves that part of it as well. And I don't know if I had to put my next paycheck on whether or not it happens, I'd still probably bet against it. if forced to make a decision, I'd bet against it, but I don't know. I'm more open-minded to it happening today than I was yesterday, just based on the fact that now Ed Werder's throwing some gasoline on it, and based on the fact that there's not a lot of old hubbub around the Cowboys besides this story, quite honestly. I mean, Paul, you mentioned a couple names, but like those are completely uninspiring. I mean, in terms of getting the crowd going and getting people talking about the Cowboys job, Robert Saleh doesn't do that for you. Leslie Frazier doesn't do that for you. Deion Sanders does that for you, though. So, yeah, I mean, it's good for the news cycle to have his name involved. And so because of that, I take like a couple percentage points off of it being realistic, because I do feel like some of it's probably just to keep his name out there because it does churn, clicks and whatever. But there's obviously something to it. I mean, it's not off the table entirely, clearly, and it might be something that actually happens. I think if you're a Colorado fan, you're just waiting with bated breath, but I know a lot of them are realistic and understand that this wasn't a lifetime job for Deion, and that there's a good chance that, especially with Shedeur and Travis Hunter now gone, yes, I know there's still ties to Colorado and another son, but I think it's the Dallas Cowboys. Like, what are we talking about? I don't care how dysfunctional Jerry is or whatever. Like, Deion loves the Cowboys, and that's a big-time job. So I'm sure he'd be enticed by it. And, yeah, I'm now just going to wait alongside everybody else and see how this plays out. But obviously it would have huge ramifications for Colorado, and it would make the Cowboys as interesting as they've been in a very long time, for better or worse. For whatever that would look like, they'd get attention. I just don't know if it translates into wins on the football field.
Look, I've been on the hamster wheel for a long time. I've been seeing the same show. Like, if it's not going to end the Super Bowl, at least make it interesting. And
to the Colorado route.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, why not? And look, Deion's got a ton of potential. The publicity stunt part of this, which until Deion is sitting at the Star with Jerry talking about how this is my brother here, we're family, I love him, I'm not going to believe it's anything more than a publicity stunt. But Deion has potential. We've seen it already at Colorado and what he can possibly do. And what other way to deal with somebody with a huge, gigantic ego than with someone with a huge, gigantic ego who loves that guy? I mean, like, Deion will thrive off of that. Now, will it mean that they'll win the Super Bowl? Hell, I don't know. I mean, Jerry has not changed his ways in a long time. But I think the only way that Jerry can maybe win one before he leaves this mortal coil is to do something a little bit risky, and this is the only thing I think he can think of.
Yeah, I know that Adam Schefter was on the ESPN morning show, and he was saying that I guess there's the scuttlebutt about Deion in Dallas, and people proclaiming that he's just using them as leverage to get like a raise at Colorado. I don't feel he'd really need to go to those lengths to get more money from Colorado, so I think that's kind of a BS angle. But because that is out there, Adam Schefter addressed it, and he said that Deion's not using the Cowboys as a leverage to get more money. Deion told him straight up, and he quoted him, said that ain't true. He said, I don't need any negotiating ploy. I'm me. And I totally believe that. Like, he doesn't need to use the Cowboys to get more money out of Colorado. You say, hey, Colorado, I'm going to leave. Give me more money. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to give him some more money. And if they say no, it'll be like, do you see the attendance the last 2 years? Do you see the TV ratings? You see the social media hits? Like, yeah, he doesn't need to leverage Colorado to get what he wants. So, yeah, I think that's a lazy angle, if anything, or just bad sourcing. But in case you've seen that and wondered about that, I mean, there's Deion's quote from Adam Schefter specifically. And I guess the most confusing part would be people already assuming he'd take the job, and, like, how could he finagle getting Shedeur, and how could he, like, what would happen with Dak, and, how could he possibly do this or do that? That would all be very interesting to figure out if he did take the job. But, yeah, here we are talking about it another day, and it's not nothing. It's not, like, imminent, it feels like, but it's definitely not nothing, because, if anything, I feel like I said a few minutes ago, there's a little more gasoline that's been sprinkled on in the last 24 hours to where nobody's saying it's not happening, right? I mean, there's something to it, so we'll see. But it is interesting.
Ed Werder's name attached to it doubles it down a little bit, too. So Mickey will be on a little bit later today in the 5 o'clock hour. By the way, on the part about Deion and the Cowboys, that's one thing. The part about him coaching Shedeur with the Cowboys and them trading Dak, They can't. It's financially irresponsible for that to even happen because of the way his contract is up. But it's very good fodder for a lot of people.
Irresponsible is one I word you could use. You could also use the word impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's impossible for them to do it. And the thing is, if they did do it, and Dak agreed to the trade, and they agreed to take on $100 million in dead cap money, then the new coach is cutting off his nose to spite his face, because that's 38% of the cap that will be used up on a player who's not there.
Not there.
And he also doesn't have to coach Shador.
Yeah.
They're not attached at the hip. So
that's part of the interesting part.
I think we don't give them enough credit as people that they could also just be like, hey, we're both going to the NFL. We'll just see you every couple years or something like that. So I don't think that would be like if this happens, I need this to happen. It's like, well, if it's impossible, you don't have that option on the table. I think you're still probably interested in being the Cowboys head coach. Like, I don't want this to happen for Colorado's sake, because that definitely makes Colorado far more interesting. But yeah, you can't put it out entirely. I mean, there's definitely some smoke.
All right, there was earlier today a story about Bill Belichick in North Carolina that mentioned that his contract with Carolina had not been signed. Not uncommon. Ali introduces, I guess, a gray area. And if, in fact, that does, the $10 million buyout, here's the deal. Here is Michael Lombardi, who's with Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Bill is recruiting in D.C. today, Baltimore tomorrow. His focus is on North Carolina football, hiring staff, and developing the team. The NFL isn't an option, so please stop making it one. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Because if it was, he would have known before this. Like, when North Carolina called, he'd been like, look, my agent and I have already got something in the works. I appreciate your interest. I mean, it would be fun, but I'm not coming to Chapel Hill. So, yeah, no, I believe that. I don't think, and people say, oh, well, Brady will hire him with the Raiders. I mean, I know that they were cool at the roast and all that, but that's a different kind of thing than working with somebody every day. They did that for 20 years and decided that they weren't going to anymore. So I'm also not sure that Bill Belichick would walk into a scenario, say in Las Vegas, where Tom Brady is now one of his bosses, because he was Tom Brady's boss before. So that's often a weird dynamic that you can't change. So yeah, I think he's going to stick it out with North Carolina.
The only Tom Brady Bill Belichick partnership I'm interested in has Tom Brady playing quarterback and doing so in his 30s. I don't have any care or interest in Brady, the part owner, and Belichick, the old head coach, trying to rekindle magic when they were a partnership. I mean, I get the allure there. I don't see that happening. And, yeah, I feel like if there was something actually there, we'd see that actually progressing and not being something that seems as far-fetched as it does. So I think that's pretty emphatic for Michael Lombardi. It is college football, so we've seen a lot of coaches say very matter-of-fact things, and they turn out to be BS. But I think in this case I do believe him, and I do believe that Bill Belichick is preparing to coach up North Carolina next year, and I think he seems excited about it. And I don't think that, he's pressing about these open NFL jobs. I think he's where he's going to be, and the NFL is going to move on without Bill Belichick. And, I think that part of it, the Dion rumors actually have legs. I feel like this is really just trying to grasp at straws and make something happen, or hoping for chaos, because, oh, my God, imagine if he were to flip away from North Carolina and then the fallout from that. But, I don't think that's happening at all.
Clint Moses, who's an Oregon State fan in the chat, goes, by the way, if Colorado was to let Prime walk away, all administration will be fired. They're the ones that took the, not risk, but took the shot with him, and they all have benefited from it, the program, the university, Boulder, and the football program, too. DeQuan Finn, he was in the transfer portal this year, at this time last year, ended up signing with Baylor, played a game or two, and then it just didn't work out. He is now officially a part of the University of Miami, Ohio football team. Very, very talented in that conference. Early in his career at Toledo, he's from Detroit, Michigan. Good luck to DeQuan Finn. That now is official. He and Miami of Ohio.
He's walking to a team that plays really good defense most years. Like, they're built on that. So if he can add a dynamic element to that offense, that should be fun to watch. Sawyer Robertson worked out, and that was great for Baylor. And part of me, looking back, thinking about how badly his ankle was injured in 2023, and knowing that, they really did see something in him before. Mike Leach saw something in him, that it was a matter of time of him being healthy, getting his mechanics right, and getting his confidence up before he was going to be an effective player. And when that happened, you saw what happened. DeQuan Finn got hurt, never really got to show much at Baylor. So I'm a little bummed that we didn't get to see that dynamic athleticism all that much here. But again, I think you'll see it plenty at Miami, Ohio.
He had the long run in the opener against Tarleton State, which was, okay, and against Texas Tech several weeks later. He ended up throwing 43 passes for Baylor, 307 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and
I hate
he's
that
now in the MAC.
Hate that it didn't work out better here, but it opened the door for Sawyer Robertson, so I don't hate it too much, and I don't think most Baylor fans hate it too much. So it worked out for all parties. He got his medical hardship. That's great, and now he's got another fresh opportunity to finish out his career on a high note. That was the one thing about that whole experience with him coming here and ending the way that it did was like, really, that's the way your college career is going to end, is basically just riding the bench, injured or whatever you were for the last 10 weeks, basically. That's not what you drew up, I don't think, and so the fact that he'll get a second shot at closing out on his own terms is great for him and his people. So, yeah, good luck to DeQuan Finn, and best of luck and best of health. Hope he gets to stay upright and stay healthy and be able to go be the player that he is one more time.
I saw that his junior year, when he was at Toledo, he split with Miami of Ohio, won during the regular season, then lost in the championship game for the Mid-American Conference Championship. Freshman LSU quarterback Colin Hurley. This is a picture. I don't think we have the picture of the tree, but I mean, he hit a tree head on, found unresponsive in an on-campus car crash. One of the best parts about this, and thank God he's okay, the cause of the crash has not been released, but officials said impairment was not suspected. So you hope, I don't know if he blacked out, I don't know if he had some sort of an issue health-wise, but that's always the part where you look, okay, oh my God, it's a college. But the good news, he's better. But at the same time, incredibly lucky after that happened overnight.
Yeah, just still 17 years old. Redshirted last year, didn't play for them. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. That's really scary, And look, you're out late at night when you're in college, no matter if you're partying or not. Like, you're at a place that things are going on late. That's just part of college life. So hope everything turns out okay. Hope that he is okay and all that. And then we do get to see him play here soon.
Yeah, shortly before 3 a.m. is when they found him, apparently. Car crash near the gates of campus. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there. I do know there's a term that stands out, though, and I'm not going to make this like every time you see this. There's plenty of people that drive a brand of car that have no issues whatsoever.
Oh, my
God.
God.
I can't not read this and see Dodge Charger. Like, it's in every article where there's a car wreck for a college football player, it feels like. I mean, it really does. That, or what is the other one that we always see?
Challenger?
Yeah, like a Challenger, I think is probably the other one. But, yeah, it seems like one of those two in every single one of these instances. So, yeah, I could not help but just that stood out in that in the story that I read. But, yeah, glad he's okay. Doubt with him being a minor and all that we'll ever hear really details on this. So, yeah, hopefully this is the last we hear of something like this revolving around Colin Hurley, and he's okay and everything's taken care of on the in the right way. The
thing about the Charger is I couldn't have handled it when I was in my 20s and my teens. Like
I wouldn't probably drive it now. Yeah,
after driving one for 2 weeks. I mean, it was a long time, and I loved every second of driving it. But I'm glad I was in my 40s, and I'm glad I know how to drive better than I did, in each decade. It's an adult car. It's not a kid's car. And look, if you have the money and you want to buy a Charger, God bless you. This is America. You can do what you want. But I'm just telling you, it's a car for people who really, really know how to drive. It's not a car for people who are 17.
No,
you don't.
It's got some get up and go to it. And again, there is no latest update this afternoon. At least I have not seen one. But he also suffered a large cut, according to reports, on his face. And so hopefully he's going to be okay. And good luck to him getting through all of that. 2 notes about bad news. The great Bob Uecker. You were going to use that? Sorry. Go back.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm sorry, Craig. The great Bob Uecker, one of the greatest broadcasters. I even actually sent this story and said, Craig, this is great for Off the Radar. He passed away today. Craig, go ahead and do anything else you want. At the unbelievable age in 90, Bob Uecker, the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, was in the locker room after they won their world championship. And, of course, a really, really fun guy to be around and a great guest on Johnny Carson's show.
I mean, if I say anything right now, I have nothing to say in a little while, so I'll wait, I guess, to say
Sorry
something.
about that.
Yeah.
I absolutely slipped. That's why I put out the rundown so anyone could question it. That's why we do it. And then also this story, Colt Barber's father, Fred, he's a owner, one of the owners of 365 Sports and SicEm365.com, passed away yesterday around noon. He was a former Baylor football player, and he passed away. And it was sudden. He was in ICU, and then the next day he passed away. And our thoughts to one of the owners of 365 and SicEm365.com in Colt Barber. If you've ever seen him during a game, he gets overly emotional about anything Baylor, and it's all because that's where it's in his blood, born, bred as a Baylor fan. We're thinking about you, Colt, and we wish the family the very best.
Seconded.
Yeah. I've got a note here. I know we have Sam Conn around the corner. Do you guys know how many teams back in 1970 were actually thought, and the standings in college football had them in as an independent?
30.
The reason I did this is because I was looking up Notre Dame and Joe Theismann, who was there, and then eventually was a part of the team that beat Texas in 1970, was also a part of a team that in fact lost to Texas in 1969. Great player, Hall of Fame player, college football Hall of Fame player. Think about these names. Obviously Notre Dame, Air Force, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Houston, West Virginia, Penn State, Cincinnati, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Miami of Florida, Navy and Army, which they've been in and out, along with even Utah State, Rutgers, and what is now Texas A&M, West Texas, Texas A&M, West Texas. They also were a part of that. There were nearly 30 teams who were independents in 1970. Just another change, of course, when conferences started to upload and take people into their conferences, and then eventually now where we are, where there's, what are there, like 3 independent teams, 3 or 4?
No, Army's not anymore,
And Army's
right?
not
Army's
independent
not, so
anymore either.
UConn's independent, Notre Dame's independent, and there's, I think, one more floating out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously down to just not even a handful, not even a full handful. So we'll have Joe Theismann today at 4, and also Sam Conn around the corner with theathletic.com. And Garrett Ross runs the mothership. We have Emery Winter in studio, and also Andrew is here in studio with us. He's starting to make that a habit. Is he sleeping here at night too? The cot and all that?
I've given him access. Whether he is or not, I'm not sure.
You ever believe the stories about NFL coaches? There was always the story about Joe Gibbs, who slept in his office on a cot because he was such a grinder.
Yeah,
as far as I can see that.
I believe that.
I can see that. And now the facilities are so amazing. Why not build him a bedroom right off of the main office, wherever it might be? Coming up, Sam Conn, theathletic.com.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Another so-so pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait,
There's Marco's.
our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Looking for the best selection of new and pre-owned cars in Central Texas? Look no further than Allen Samuels in Waco. From trucks to family SUVs, we've got it all at Allen Samuels in Waco, your friend in the car business.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports will take you all the way up until around 6. Close it out with Paul's Top 5. Sam Kahn joining us now with theathletic.com. Craig, you want to give whatever note on Micah Hudson?
Yeah, I'm just trying to sort through what some of the news is here, but according to, I think, Billy Liucci, because, you got to sort through a lot on Twitter that you don't quite know what it really is or not, but I believe, according to Billy Liucci, and now you see it from Pete Nakos and some others, Texas A&M transfer wide receiver Micah Hudson, formerly of Texas Tech, has stepped away from day-to-day football activities. I saw one report, because this is all just coming down now, was to possibly deal with some just off-field mental health type issues or whatnot. I don't want to say too much more because I don't really know the details and I don't want to speculate too much, but the report is out there that Micah Hudson is not with A&M right now or is taking a break. So that is obviously very interesting.
Sam, you cover A&M quite a bit. You cover a lot of college football, not just around A&M in the state, but a lot of places. Your thoughts just about the story that we just saw right before we came back to be a part of your segment?
Yeah, that's news to me. I hadn't heard that until y'all read it. So interesting to figure out. Will it be interesting to see what happens there? Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of Micah on the field. Didn't spend a lot of time on the field last year at Texas Tech. Immensely talented guy. Hopefully he can take care of whatever he's got going on. But, hopefully we'll find out some more about that here soon.
All right, so you wrote something about Quinn Ewers. Obviously, the national championship semifinal game did not go the way anyone wanted it. Through a UT fan or even Ewers down at the doorstep at the 1. Didn't work out. The fumble return for the touchdown that's basically sealed the game. Your thoughts about how he played this out, and in the end, in your opinion, did he make the only decision and the right decision to turn pro?
Yeah, I think this was the only decision for him to make, and I think it is the right one. I understand the rumors about the big money that's out there waiting for him in the transfer portal to go to another team, but I think if his goal is to be an NFL quarterback, which clearly is, it's a stated goal, then I don't think there's any sense in pushing this any further, in delaying his pro career, pro future anymore. He's started 36 games at Texas. He's worked with one of the best play callers in the game, Steve Sarkisian. He's had an immense amount of talent around him. I think if he were to stay and transfer, you would introduce a lot of other variables. What kind of coach are you going to end up with? What kind of supporting cast you're going to have around you? You're going to have to learn a new offense, a new system. Certainly, wherever you're going is probably not running what Steve Sarkisian's running. So, and then he's got his injury history, which you have to take into account. He's been injured each of the last 3 years and missed games. I understand he's not considered a first-round pick right now, and when you talk to scouts, some of them have some optimism about him, and some of them think maybe he's a backup long-term in this league and not a starter. But I think with as thin as the quarterback class is, with no real slam dunk guys after Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, I think he has the potential to woo some scouts during the pre-draft process because of his physical tools. I think he'll interview really well. And you know how it is. In the NFL, guys fall in love with quarterbacks. They overdraft at the position. I could absolutely see him going up just because of everything he's done at the college level, the physical tools that he has, particularly his arm strength, his ball placement. And maybe he ends up getting drafted higher than people think. But I just think it was time to move on. I think he's proven what he is at the college level. I think he's reached the ceiling at the college level. I think he is what he is at this point. I don't think he stood to gain very much by coming back.
What do you think about Texas with this mass exodus to the NFL? They've lost some depth, some guys that weren't playing to the portal. So there's going to be some adding in there. But is this a team that's ready to compete with all these new young guys? Or can we expect to see a team that might be just pretty good and not great?
I think there's potential to be pretty good next year. And for these reasons, yes, they do lose a lot. They lose 4 or 5 starters in the offensive line, but you bring back DJ Campbell, Trevor Gooseby, who filled in for Kelvin Banks, I thought was pretty good. Cole Hudson, who rotated with DJ Campbell at right guard. He's got a lot of experience, and he's played a lot of football for them. He started games before in the past for them. So that's a very experienced guy. The biggest hole to fill is going to be at center, where you had Jake Majors. You got a multi-year starter. That's going to be a really hard one to fill. But they're bringing back most of their running backs. You still have some talented receivers with DeAndre Moore, and you have Ryan Wingo, the freshman, who I thought played really well. You get C.J. Baxter back. And then you look at defense, getting Trey Moore back today. He wasn't one of the underclassmen to go in the draft. So getting Trey Moore back at edge rusher, you got Colin Simmons back. You get Anthony Hill back. You get Ethan Burke. Michael Taft, the safety All-American, is coming back. I think they have enough pieces to still be really good. Now, will they be young? Yes, they will be pretty young, especially from a depth standpoint. There's not going to be a lot of veteran depth on this roster. It's going to be a lot of freshmen and sophomores in rotational roles. But from a first 22 on both sides of the ball, I still think this is a really good team, and certainly a team that I would project to get into the playoff as the roster stands today.
Sam, this Arch Manning coverage is going to be unlike, I think, anything we've ever seen before, right? I mean, there's part of me that's very excited to see it because now we know he's actually playing on a weekly basis. But do you think there's any close comparison? I mean, can you think of any player that's really drawn as much interest in such a short amount of time from recruit to now as what we're about to, see unfold fully in Austin, Texas?
Yeah, not quite the attention level. This is going to be unprecedented because it's not only that he was considered a great high school recruit. He was number 1 in the country. I think 247 Sports had number 1. Maybe ESPN did too, or some other services did too. But he's got the famous last name. He's got the pedigree. He's got 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks as uncles. He's got a really great NFL quarterback who was a grandfather. He's got the bloodlines. He's got the tools. He seems to already be embracing the role that he is in now and then the role that he's going to be. He seems to be pretty coachable. He's got all the physical tools. Like here's what I want to get by to everybody who thinks, well, this is just a kid that we're just writing about him because his last name is Manning. Go watch the kid play because the kid is really talented. Anytime I've seen him in person, especially after his freshman year. I think his freshman year, you could tell he was swimming a little bit. But once he figured it out and once he understood what he was doing in that offense, you could tell the athleticism is there. The arm strength is there. He can definitely drive the ball. He's definitely confident in where he can place the ball. And I'm really excited to see him in this offense because that very first start that he had against ULM, those who may have watched it remember they threw the ball deep a lot in that game, a lot more than they usually do. And Steve Sarkisian said afterwards, he goes, the reason is when we drew up the script, we look at what we want to call, and everything that we looked at that we wanted to call, it's like, well, we like this, we like this, we like this, because they were things that fit what Arch could do well. And one of the biggest struggles that I think Quinn Ewers had was placing the ball on downfield passes. He was not consistently accurate downfield. I think that is something that's going to change with Arch Manning. And I think with the play action passing game and how many shot plays Sarks likes to take, I think you're going to see them be a lot more dangerous and effective in the downfield passing game with Arch Manning.
Yeah, he threw a beautiful fade, which is really a one, just boom. That's a timing device, literally at 15 or 30 yards down the field. But the other stuff, deep over the middle, there was an occasional catch, whatever. And that did seem to kind of like disappear from what I thought I saw him do his first couple of years at Texas. The championship game is set. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Both teams are red hot. Notre Dame lost that game earlier to Northern Illinois. Didn't blink, kept moving. Ohio State lost the game to Michigan. All hell's breaking loose. And here they are with this chance. Reminded me of the 14 team that was going to be left out, and then they got hot. Your thoughts about who we have and where we are?
I'm glad that we're at this point because we've gotten two teams that have earned it. It's not been a beauty contest per se. There's some of that when you do the selection at the front end, but once the bracket is set, you got to win your way there. And Notre Dame has won their way there, even though they had some injuries. They've dealt with some adversity. Ohio State, when you came into this tournament after all the noise that was going on after the Michigan loss, I don't think a lot of people picked Ohio State or thought Ohio State would be playing here. I think they would have picked Oregon or Texas to get here before Ohio State. And that's a testament to Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles, and that whole staff for getting back up off the mat and getting this team there. Because when you watch them from a talent standpoint, it's clear to me, of all the teams that I've seen this year, that team has the best roster in the country. They have talent up and down the offensive positions, up and down the defense. They have speed, they have strength, they have power, they have size, they have the whole nine. And I'm going to be fascinated to watch this game. I think it's going to be not terribly dissimilar to the Texas game in that I think it's going to be a lot of defense and a little bit of a slugfest. But I'm just glad that we get, and people can say, oh, we got two big brands. That's okay because they won their way there. It wasn't, we didn't just preordain that these teams would get there. And so these teams have earned their way there, and now you get to get a real live slugfest to see them duke it out for the title. I think Ohio State's a better team, and I think Notre Dame being beat up a little bit is going to hurt them in this one, but it's going to be fun to see it play out. That's why they play the game.
What do you think this means? Like, for Will Howard, who, you know, when he was at Kansas State, he had a bit of a roller coaster. They threw him in there when he was 17 years old, and his whole fan base thought he sucked. And then, they go and get transfer quarterbacks to play in front of him, and then eventually he just comes in and makes them better and helps them win the Big 12. Then he gets pushed aside for the hot young quarterback in Avery Johnson. And now here he is standing on the precipice of winning a national title at Ohio State. This is one of the more bizarre college quarterback stories ever written, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Because, again, I think there was a lot of uncertainty even when Ohio State took him. Is this guy good enough to win you a national championship? Because that was the goal. You spend all this money in the portal. You spend all this money to retain a roster and make a run and go all in on winning a national title this year. And one of the biggest questions was a quarterback. Was this the guy to get you there? Never mind that he won a Big 12 championship at Kansas State. He was up and down at times, but you surround him with the talent that they've got there and what a difference it makes. I think his veteran presence has been huge, especially when I think back to the Cotton Bowl. I think about that 8-minute drive that Ohio State went to put that game away. That Will Howard really was key there, especially on the fourth down run to kind of keep the chains moving and keep them on the field and get what eventually turned out to be the go-ahead score. So he's been a guy who's just really gotten it done. Anytime you've put him in there, whether it was at K-State or Ohio State, he's not the flashy. He's not going to jump off the page. He's not a first-round pick. He was a 3-star recruit. He's not going to be anybody that wows you, but he gets it done. He finds a way, whether it's with his legs or with his arm. He finds a way to get it done. And like I said, testament to Chip Kelly. I think he put him in some really good spots in that Texas game, and it helps to have two uber talented receivers and two really good running backs behind you.
Sam, what is your intrigue or curiosity level when it comes to Dallas Cowboys head coach Deion Sanders and all the rumors that are out there right now? Obviously, we'd love to see him stay at Colorado because it makes them a lot more interesting. I know they'd love that as well, but there's obviously some smoke here. I mean, nobody's really backing down or saying no chance at all. So just what have you thought of what you've heard and kind of what you've seen in terms of what you expect to come next?
Yeah, my intrigue level is it's entertaining, and the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones will be nothing if not entertaining. And so I don't watch them a ton, but I do appreciate that they always give everybody something to write about. I understand why Jerry would look this way, because you do have to give Deion a lot of credit. Look at what he did at Jackson State. Look at what he's done at Colorado. And whether you like his personality and his bravado or not, the bottom line is the guy has won, and the guy has done a good job in player acquisition and being able to turn programs around, at least in the small sample size that we have. Does that translate to the NFL? I don't know. It's hard to say, but considering their relationship, the fact that he was such a big free agent signee for them back in '95 and won a Super Bowl with them, certainly there's a relationship there between Deion and Jerry, and I think it only makes sense. If you have a relationship, why not talk to him? If you're Deion, you'd be crazy not to listen, because there are very few jobs out there that you drop everything and go take if you're a college coach, and NFL head coach for the Dallas Cowboys is absolutely one of them. So I think it's intriguing. I think it's more than just a courtesy call. I think it's actually something they legitimately will look at. If I had to put my money on it, I still think Dallas will end up with Kellen Moore at the end of the day. But that's me with no NFL expertise or no inside information. That's just a guess based on how these things go. But if you're Deion, it's a no-lose situation. You can either stay at Colorado where everybody loves you and you turn the program around, or you can go take an NFL job with Cowboys with an owner that is very fond of you, and you'll have some job security and a nice payday to go with it.
I know that today there's been some reporting about the eligibility in college athletics. And one of them is that when you enter college, you get 5 years and you get to play 5 years. I love this idea. I think it almost makes so much sense. It's dumb that it wasn't, before. The eligibility, of course, has some concerns about whether it will be waivers, red shirts, and all that. But it appears as if that's what you get: 5 years to play 5 years. And you get to play all of them if you want to. What are your thoughts about that? This seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think once we went to the 4-game red shirt, and once the utilization of that became not what it was intended, it was originally intended for, hey, let your freshmen or your young players play, or let players that got injured early in the season not have to burn a year. When we got away from that and it became manipulated so that a team could hold back players like Dana Holgorsen in Houston did a few years ago, or if you're a player who wants to enter the transfer portal and you play 4 games and then hold back the rest of the year so you can enter the portal, I think that really created chaos in the middle of the season, and we didn't really see that coming until it actually happened. I think going 5 for 5 makes sense. Go 5 for 5 and then give people an injury exception, that if you lose a year to injury, you get one. But maybe you put a limit on that to a certain extent, because you don't want guys out here playing at 25, 26 years old in college football. But I think it's a natural step. Every coach that I talk to, everybody in the industry that I talk to, seems to like this idea. And I think it depends on, of course, how fast a legislative process moves with this. But I get the sense that within the next calendar year, it wouldn't surprise me if this thing gets done, because I think it'll help for roster management. We've had so many variables thrown in, from the red shirts to the COVID year, which we're starting to pretty much phase out of most of those guys now, to the JUCO waiver now that's involved. So all this has created a little bit of a challenge for roster managers. It's also created a challenge for high school recruits who are having fewer spots to go to some of these schools, because guys are able to stay longer and extend their eligibility. Going 5 for 5 makes the roster management a lot easier, a lot cleaner, a lot more simple for everybody, and it will be helpful to have that stability as we move forward into a rev share era.
Can they call it the move on with your life rule?
5 plus 1 injury exception, and then you have to go get a job. Call it the enter the job portal rule. Post your LinkedIn.
Yeah. No,
I mean, they do. Part of it, Sam, I think that you have a couple scenarios of 6-year guys that have helped you out. But I think if you look at the gigantic amount of numbers, if a guy is in his 6th, 7th, or God forbid 9th year like Cam McCormick was, if he has not been told by professional football leagues, of which there are 3 that they could go to, we would like you to come here, then maybe they're not going to help you win all that much.
Yeah, no doubt. And part of it, too, is, though, you can probably make more money as a 7th or 8th year tight end at a Power 4 school than you could in the UFL or one of these other pro leagues that is not the NFL. So that's part of it, too. But I think 5 plus an injury year, if you end up having one, is the right number. We were able to have that before in some extreme cases. I remember once upon a time, Case Keenum at Houston ended up playing 6 years because he had a redshirt year, an injury year. I think he had 2 injury years, actually. So I think that's enough. I think once we get past 6, I think we're getting a little much. But 5 for 5 as a normal thing. And then that way you're not having to play. Also, it allows coaches not to have to play this redshirt game. If you want to play a freshman a few games, and if you want to play him a 5th, then that's totally fine. Because the other thing is we have this right now, this bowl game situation, this postseason situation where you get the 4, but then you get the postseason games are exempt from that. So you really and honestly can play up to 8 games, I think, without burning a redshirt year if you're playing all the way into the national championship. But I think it just makes it easier for roster management. And like you said, not having guys 25, 26 years old play college football, and also trickling back down to the high school guys, letting some of these fringe high school guys who would have had opportunities in the past that are not getting them because of some of these guys staying longer, allowing them to have a few more opportunities to get recruited and get on the college football rosters.
Yeah, Sam, there was so much initially leading up to the 12 teams being selected for the playoff. And then, of course, after the first night, oh, my God, Indiana didn't compete. Now that we're on the cusp of the championship, how do you feel like it's gone? And if you did, you yourself would recommend one change, if at all, which change would that be?
I wouldn't change anything for next year. And I know that may be a little controversial just because of the seeding and how the conference championship thing worked out. But let's go through at least 2 years before we start changing things. It's such a small sample size. How I felt is it was great. I had a lot of fun with this. And I came back from the Cotton Bowl last week. I did the first round. I did the quarterfinals of the Peach Bowl, and I did the semis of the Cotton Bowl. And that was more fun than I've had in a long, long time covering college football because it was so new. You got to see so many different storylines, so many different fan bases from across the country involved. It no longer was concentrated to just SEC country or Big Ten country. You had teams from Boise, you had Indiana, you had SMU, you had Arizona State. You had so many parts of the country involved and invested in this. And we really got to see and learn some great stories. We all knew Ashton Genty, of course, before this. But a lot of people, even through the Big 12 championship game, your casual fans across the country, maybe didn't know who Cam Scadaboo was. Mm-hmm. Buddy, they learned it against Texas in the quarterfinals. And they learned who Sam Leavitt was. I think that changes an outlook for next year. When you look at Arizona State next year, people are going to remember Sam Leavitt and the performance that he had against Texas. Those types of things are special. Seeing Penn State get to a semifinal. We've asked so many questions about James Franklin, but we got to see them actually make a deep run. Regardless of how you feel about their path, they got themselves there. They won their way there. Marcus Freeman, who I remember he lost some games early in his tenure at Notre Dame, and we were talking about whether that guy was going to be on the hot seat. Yep. Now he's playing for a national championship. There's so many layers to this, and the playoff so far has done what I think most of us who were in favor of it thought it was going to do, which was make the thing more interesting and open it up for other teams. And now, oh, by the way, we have 2 straight championships without an SEC team involved, and I think that says a lot about where we are. So I've been thrilled with how it's turned out. I want to see it go. Let's run it back again without any more changes. Let's see how it goes next year. But I'm so glad we did it because I think it's been a lot of fun. It's made the season long, but I think it's been a lot of fun for everybody involved. And I think we're going to have a great championship game on Monday night.
Sam, I know you got to go. I'm just going to bring it back full circle where we started since we brought up Micah Hudson.
Yep.
Since Billy Liucci's confirmed that, I guess some of the details of some of the reporting, but basic gist of it is they're holding a spot open for Micah, who's going to go deal with some personal issues. And if he comes back, open arms. And if he doesn't, that's another story. But, yeah, interesting twist. And I saw somebody actually recommend if somebody could put together a package to get Jonte Cook, Ajayi Hall, and Micah Hudson all on like the East Mississippi Community College team or something. Like what a squad that would be.
Absolutely, no kidding. I will tell you this: it's a good thing for A&M that they loaded up at receiver the way they did, because they got a lot more than just Micah. They got Casey Concepcion from NC State. They ended up doing really well in the recruiting 2025 recruiting class on that front as well. So I think they'll be fine at receiver. They did lose Noah Thomas. He entered the portal, so that is a tough loss. But they knew they needed to improve that room a lot, and so it wasn't like they were banking solely on Hudson. Like I said, hopefully everything's okay. Hopefully he takes care of his business, because he's a really talented guy. Anybody who saw him in high school knows how superbly talented he was, why he was a 5-star. So hopefully he can get his stuff handled and get back, because I'm anxious to see him play college football, because I think he's a really talented guy.
Yep. Lake Belton star, 5-star, Texas Tech. Didn't work out there, and now we'll see what happens going on. Hope he's going to be okay. Thank you, Sam. Great stuff. Appreciate your time. Sam Conn with us from theathletic.com. This is a troubling story, obviously, because it didn't work out in Lubbock. I wonder, are there too many people in his ear? Is he listening to the right people? Is he just a confused young man? Is there something going on? You hope it's not going to be something that's too much more than just needing to take a deep breath.
Well, honestly, without more details, I'm more worried about the LSU quarterback who crashes his car, because this could be like your aunt has cancer or something.
Yeah.
Like, we have no idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I understand the red flags that are out there of having moved 2 schools in less than 2 years. That is certainly not the best look. And so something needs to be figured out, certainly, for him, and just to find a spot that makes sense, and just a spot in life, I mean, not even just at a college. Clearly that's not the priority now, because he is stepping away. But as I mentioned, Billy Ucci confirming the report, or he was the first out there, but confirming some of the additional reporting, I think, from Pete Nakos, that alluded to some more of the details. And yeah, the basic gist of it is that he's stepping away from A&M and their day-to-day, and that if he wants to come back at some point, they'll have a spot for him. But if not, it sounds like they're fully prepared to, move on without him. So we'll see what the next chapter is for Micah Hudson. But yeah, I wish I could have gone back and found the tweet that had the joke about, like, man, if some school could like pony up and get a Ajayi Hall and Jonte Cook and Micah Hudson and have like a squad of wide receivers. But obviously those guys need to figure some things out. And I just wonder, with Paul being an Aggie fan by birth, basically, if your not this shit again detector went off as soon as you saw the Micah Hudson headline, because it just feels like one of those, like, of course. Like,
not real. I mean, like, again, he hasn't done anything to help him yet, so,
It was a pretty big get about 2 weeks ago, though.
Yeah,
like,
it was. I mean, even I felt like, well, he didn't really sniff the field that much at Tech this year. So
I think it's more of a joke about the fact that A&M just seemingly always happens to have, like, not this again, and that's what I'm referring to more than anything.
That's exactly kind of how it goes there. But again, until, like, I've taken the approach with my sports teams now, because Jerry broke me, that until things change, I'll just take them as they come. So if Micah Hudson comes back and catches 75 passes and scores 12 touchdowns for A&M, then great. If he doesn't, then guess what? I never got to see him do it in the first place. So, I mean, nothing changed other than the fact that he was there for, a little bit.
Yeah, the key word used in the Pete Nakos report was temporarily, so there is that. But it sounds like you fully resigned to just, like, what it sounds like you've just been beaten down to the point of just like, if it's ever good again, great, and if it just stays this way, then I'm numb to it.
I don't know, like, especially when it comes to – see, college football is different because there's new players all the time. It's like, there's a constant refresh. And now, because of the transfer portal, that refreshes even faster. So you can find optimism maybe a little bit quicker in college football. But when it's been a while since a team has won a championship, I don't think you can just sit there and start the year and listen to all the sunshine pumping and go, oh, this is the year. No. It's only the year when at the end of the thing, the commissioner of whatever sport that is says, here.
When we come back, I agree with you on how it's faster now to just refresh as much as you have ever seen in college football. When we come back, College Football Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion quarterback, former Notre Dame Irish quarterback Joe Theismann. He'll join us. This is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni fan engagement Paul Thorpe, Doug Furch. They do a great deal to make sure that Baylor alums, donors are connected, wherever it might be. If there's a watch party, it doesn't have to be just football season because that's when it involves more fans. But let's say there's a watch party for Baylor, Kansas that first day or first weekend in February, and you're not in the Waco area. You might be in Houston or maybe L.A., and you want to know if other Baylor alums and boosters want to watch that game. There might be something that you yourself just want to know so you can get connected yourself straight with Baylor about something going on within the university, not just in athletics. Baylor University Alumni Fan Engagement, Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe. Go to Facebook for more information or baylor.edu.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
College Football Hall of Fame quarterback, Super Bowl champion Joe Theismann joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Joe, thank you very much, man. As a fan, you played at Notre Dame, you played with Washington, seeing the Fighting Irish where they are, and also the Commanders playing the way they are. Is kind of hog heaven for you right now?
Yeah, I'm having a heck of a week. I really am. I mean, what I've been able to enjoy and what I've been able to see is just, it's so gratifying to see Washington back where they haven't been in a couple of decades. And of course, Notre Dame making the run that they have it's just been magical. I mean, you know, a little bit of luck of the Irish in a couple of games, people not hitting open people and guys making plays. And it's just one thing after another. Every one of these games, both of these teams have created nail biters. I don't have any nails left, to be honest.
I can imagine.
Joe, when you were at Notre Dame, it was, and it's kind of funny that these stories are kind of mirroring each other in certain ways. In that when you were at Notre Dame, that was the program. I mean, the elite of the elite, the bluest of the blue bloods, the one everybody knew and watched. And then, the rest of the world, college football changed, and the rest of the world kind of caught up a little bit more, and they haven't won in so long. What is it like to see some of those things come back up that when you were playing at Notre Dame were so familiar of being a national championship contender, being one of the elites, and people being legit scared of you?
I think that it's so gratifying to see the program back where, it was when I was fortunate enough to be able to play. But Marcus Freeman has done just a terrific job of creating a culture. That word comes up so often when you think about the things that he accomplished. And, I was sort of reading some things, and if it wasn't for Jack Swarbrick's vision, Marcus wouldn't be the coach. I mean, he took a chance on a young man, a very young person, and we promoted from within. And all you needed to do, I think Jack had to feel great when he made he obviously made the decision for a reason. But when Marcus was introduced to the team, the way the players literally erupted with cheers, having him be the head coach had to be so gratifying for Jack because, he was sort of going in uncharted territory to a large degree with a very young coach after Brian Kelly had been there for a dozen years, taking them to a lot of wins. And then all of a sudden Marcus comes in, and it's been a great 3 years.
Joe, what have been your impressions or your, interest level in this expanded playoff and seeing the road? I mean, there's no doubt. I know there was some controversy there in the first round with some blowouts about, seeding and things like that, but there's no doubt the two best teams are left standing, and they've proven it over the last month with the wins they've had to pick up. But, I mean, what a journey beating a red-hot Indiana team, beating Georgia, beating Penn State, now the opportunity with Ohio State. Just what have you thought of this and the big change in college football to this expanded postseason?
Well, I don't have a problem with the expanded postseason. I don't think that just because you win a conference, you should get a bye. I've always felt like if you have a better record than somebody else, you should be rewarded because you earned the right to be able to have a bye, even though all the bye teams were out. But that's one thing I think they're going to look at. It's the first year. I think for the first time out of the chute, they did a really, really good job doing the best they can to examine the way things are going to be and the way it's going to go. My biggest problem with the collegiate aspect of things is the portal. I mean, just for an example, the backup quarterback at Penn State couldn't participate in that game. If something happened to the starter, they were down to a third-string quarterback. You go all year, you fight your rear end off with this group of guys, and all of a sudden, I have to go into the portal if I'm leaving. I think they really need to take a hard look at how long the season really is. You're looking at, Notre Dame's going to play in the Ohio State. They're playing their 16th game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're paying players enough for it to be professional football and professional sports in general in college, but this is a 16-game schedule. It's a long, hard schedule, and I think that there's some things that they can do. I think they have to change the portal to one specific date and get people to stay a little bit more, be able to commit to a university a little bit more, and then if they seek rewards someplace else, they can do it. But I think, having the 12-team playoff, it was fun. It was fun watching Notre Dame play Indiana. It was fun watching, Ohio State and Texas go at it. I love college football. I love everything about it, except that I think it's become more professionalized than anybody ever dreamt it would.
Yeah, they didn't think ahead about, okay, well, what happens if this happens? And, of course, 8 or 9 new things all came into existence in NCAA athletics at one time. Joe, does Riley Leonard remind you of you in any way?
No. No. He's a much stronger runner. He's a much bigger person. I've had a chance to be with Riley, and he's let me put it this way. I hope our view of life is very similar. I believe in the Lord. He believes in the Lord. I love Notre Dame. He loves Notre Dame. I never had a chance to play for a national championship, although we felt like we did, even though at that time it was just a question of somebody voting for you or not voting for you. So in that regard, but I threw the ball a bit more with our offense than he did. Certainly, I wasn't going to run over people, and the last thing I'd try to do would be jump over people because I couldn't jump that high, so it wouldn't matter. But he's you know what's impressive about him, and I believe Mike Denbrock, our offensive coordinator, deserves the credit as well. Riley got hurt against Notre Dame last year when he was at Duke. He had no spring work, no spring practice. Didn't really start practicing till just before the season started. And the quarterback we saw that started against A&M and the quarterback that we saw that started against Penn State are really two very different Riley Leonards. And he's just gotten better and better and better. Mike has a better understanding of what his quarterback can do. He has a better understanding of the offense. You know, we threw for more yards in that game, hard yards against Penn State than we probably had in a while. You know, Notre Dame's built on running the football. Let's face it, that's what they do. They run the football, bottom line. And Riley's a big part of it. I don't think that's just going to be the only way you can go against Ohio State. They're very dynamic on the offensive side of the ball, and they're very good on the defensive side of the ball. Just like I believe we're very good on the defensive side. And for us, you know, I think that little bit of uncertainty. I don't know if Ohio State really knows what they're going to get from Notre Dame's offense, which I think is good. You know, you keep them off balance a little bit. I think that's a good way to go. But do I see similarities? No, like I say, just our love for Notre Dame and the belief in the Lord. And, you know, other than that, he is a physical specimen. He's a big kid, okay? He's really a big kid.
Well, then I know you're going to say you're exactly like Jaden Daniels, because that was my
next. You've gone from one extreme to the next.
But just when you look at him, and of course everything that's going on around the team right now kind of just starts with the joy of new ownership and how there's a buzz around the organization. But for him to step in this like first full year of the ownership and just send a charge into the fan base, what have you seen from him, that gives you hope for his career, the future of the franchise, and everything in Washington?
I love everything about him. I love the young man. The young man's a terrific young man. His athleticism speaks for itself. Everybody in the beginning of the year was concerned. He's lean. He's tight. He's not, he's not really Leonard. All right. He's not a big guy where you say, or Josh Allen, who runs a lot as well. But he's wiry and he's tough and he's smart. He has wonderful football intellect for a young guy that hasn't played at this level. Of course, when he transferred from Arizona State and went to LSU, he had Mike Denbrock there, who's at Notre Dame. But so Mike's really been the guy who's had both of those quarterbacks. He's had Riley and also Jaden. As far as looking at him and comparing him, the thing about Jaden to me is you could write down 10 things that you look for in a quarterback. And I wouldn't say a rookie quarterback, just a quarterback. His accuracy, his ability to throw the ball down the field, his athleticism, his football intellect, learning how to protect himself, processing so that you can get plays called where you're not getting 5-yard delay game penalties. We see that more from places like Green Bay and even the Rams because their offense is very verbal, lots of words. And the quarterbacks have to get a lot of things out to be able to relay it. You watch the clock. They're always running down to 1 second before they snap the ball. It doesn't happen in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, has done a terrific job starting on early with Jaden, just getting the ball out of his hand. Doesn't want to get him hurt, doesn't want to get him hit. I remember Tom Moore, great offensive coordinator, quarterback guru. Tom and I did a camp many years ago, and then in broadcasting, he had Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. And this was Peyton's rookie year. He said, there's two things I want to do with Peyton. I want to make sure he doesn't get beat up physically, and I want to make sure he doesn't get beat up mentally. And you see where Peyton is today, or when he went through how he was with the game, one of the best that ever put on a uniform. I think in Jaden's case, because of his ability to run and because of the ability to protect himself, they can threaten people in a lot different ways. Take a look at Tampa Bay. I remember watching that game the other night. They had 2 spies on them. 2, not one. They didn't have somebody in the middle. They had 2 spies trying to account for his running ability. which opens things up. So just the mere threat of his athleticism creates opportunities for the offense.
Does it just feel like you're walking almost into a different room when you're around the organization these days? I mean, you got 3 fans of the Commanders here in this room that you're talking to right now, actually. And we all know the slog and kind of the dark clouds that hovered for a couple of decades and just the ugliness at times. Winning obviously changes everything, but from Josh Harris to Dan Quinn to Cliff Kingsbury to Jaden Daniels, like so many people have a part in this change. But does it just – what's it like to just see the spirit back in Washington, D.C., quite frankly, and to see this passionate fan base that's kind of been almost in hibernation for a while, being able to just unleash with the passion that they've always had once again?
No, the energy is just unbelievable. I mean, people are so excited for this football team. And not only is it a football team that you can enjoy, but it keeps you on the edge of your seat. The last 5 games have all gone down to the wire. I mean, you couldn't script, winning games like this, going down to the last minute with really having it being kicked off with a Hail Mary, which you just don't see happen very often in football. Another name that you have to take into consideration is Adam Peters, the general manager. I mean, think about this football team from a Commander standpoint. When the season started, okay, you had an entirely new coaching staff, an entirely new philosophy, a new offense. Defense conceptually is different. Over 60% of the guys that put that Commander uniform on that were announced as starters weren't with the team in the previous year. Such tremendous newness. And I've told people this. It reminds me of the 1981 team that I had a chance to be a part of when Joe Gibbs took over. We had a new coach. We had a new system. We really didn't know one another. We had to grow to know one another. We started that season 0-5. And then once we settled in, we went 8-3, 12-1, 16-3, 11-5. And I think this team has the potential to really build because it's a very young ball club. And Jaden will continue to grow. C.J. Stroud has sort of taken a step back, it looks like, this year. He had a sensational rookie season last year. I just don't see that happening with Jaden. I think he's got that kind of ability to sustain what he's done.
Joe, what would you say the difference is between what you see Jaden Daniels' rookie year to when RG3 burst on the scene his rookie year when they had everybody on fire that 2012 season?
Robert was a great athlete, a great runner. I mean, shoot, he wanted to compete in the Olympics. His throwing, he hadn't really become a polished thrower. It was something that he had to work on and continue to work on and never really had a chance because he got hurt. I think Jaden came right out of college, right out of LSU, throwing the ball really well, in particular the deep ball. I mean, this football team hadn't averaged 20 points a game for years. Now they're 28, close to 29 points a game. And obviously special teams and defense contribute to that. But the offense has been more dynamic. The guys have held on to the ball, which is critical. And Jaden has thrown the ball very well. But I think foundationally, he was a better thrower than Robert coming out. And it's not to say that Robert couldn't have been and gotten better as time went on, but he never really had a chance.
Joe, our mutual friend Ricky Thompson told me
my roomie.
Told me one time when I asked, like, what is the indicator? Like, if you had to pick one thing that's changed about the team in Washington, and he said the one of the biggest things, an ownership decision, obviously, and obviously a municipal decision, but when they moved out of RFK Stadium and into Maryland, it took the heart out of the fan base because that's really where it was there in D.C. at the RFK site. Now, there's a great possibility that they move back there. Would you like to see – I mean, I'm sure Virginia and Maryland are going to try and stop it, but it seems that the momentum is kind of pointing in that direction right now. Is that what most of the ex-players want to see, is back at RFK?
We're just thrilled that they're winning. I mean, I don't – as far as that basically was political, but President Biden signed off on the opportunity for them to have the possibility to be able to use that site because it was federal land. So there was the possibility that they could use that site if in the event they wanted to build a stadium there. Haven't heard what Virginia's had to say or Maryland's had to say about where they possibly might want to put a stadium and if a bid goes in. But I do know that playing down at RFK there, it was special to get to. You're really in the heart of the city. You're in the heart of the Washington, D.C. area. And a lot of the fans got very used to going there. Now, with this particular football team, with this fan base has never seen what's going on this year. It's been 2 decades since they really had a chance to stand up and consistently for an entire season get excited. Hope is not a strategy. It really isn't. And it was really, I guess, over the last couple of years, we'd win a couple games, go out of the blocks and say, hey, I hope we can keep on going. And then it would fizzle. And really the franchise, there never was a face of the franchise. Really, I think your quarterback needs to be the face of the franchise. And Jaden has certainly fulfilled that for fans. And he's such a wonderful kid. I mean, I watched the piece on Sunday, and they were talking about, him with that young lady who had cancer and going to see her. I mean, what you saw there was the real. He was real. He is real. He was real. And that's Jaden. That's the kind of young man he is. Like I said, his athletic skills are incredible. I mean, Cliff's going to call probably anywhere between 8 to 10 runs just specifically for him in the course of a game. I mean, your quarterback's going to run. That's what we do. That's how they play that game. And in the beginning, everybody worried about getting hurt, but he's wrapped tight, and he's wiry, and he's smart, and he's just downright fun to watch. When he takes a snap, it's a little bit like Patrick Mahomes. You don't know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
It really is. Mm-hmm. It's just one big box of chocolates.
Joe, you were inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2003. You had a great run at Notre Dame. I know those back-to-back years in the Cotton Bowl, and you got the one against Texas in the 1970 season. Terry Hanratty is also going into the College Football Hall of Fame, who was on that team when you were there. He got injured. You then took over, and the rest is history. Did you know that? And what do you? How exciting to kind of see that come full circle for him?
I just found it out 2 hours ago. That Terry's going into the Hall of Fame, the College Football. And I think it's so appropriate and so wonderful and such a great honor. I've been a part of it. I've been there since 2003. And I'm sorry it took this long for him to get in, but it's great that he is finally there and being recognized. Had Terry stayed healthy, there probably wouldn't have been a story about Joe Theismann or Theismann, whichever one I am or was, having my name changed. I mean, if Terry hadn't gotten hurt, I would have never had the chance. Because Eric could have chosen 2 seniors over me to play, but he gave me the chance to be able to play quarterback for those games. But, Terry was on his way. He and Jimmy Seymour, they were the talk of the town. They were the combination in college football. And Terry was a Heisman Trophy candidate until the time he got hurt. So it's really great to see him join us in the Hall.
What were your parents' thoughts about when you changed your name?
Oh, it's funny. Well, it's actually, my mom and dad were okay. So if I got a second to tell the story.
Yeah.
If I can, okay. So Roger Baldessari calls me in the office, and I had a really good junior year. And he said, Joe, how do you pronounce your last name? I said, it's Theismann. He says, no, it's not. It's Theismann. I said, no, my last name is Theismann. He says, no, your last name is Theismann. So I said, can I use your phone? So I picked up the phone. I called my dad back home in New Jersey. I get my dad on the phone. I said, Dad, I got a question for you. He said, what's that, Joe? He said, how do we pronounce our last name? Dead silence on the phone. My dad comes on about 30 seconds later. He says, are you all right? You're a senior in college. You don't know your last name. What's going on? I said, I'll explain it later. Just tell me, how do you pronounce it? It's Theismann. Hung the phone up, turned to Raj. I said, Raj, my last name is Theismann. I know, I just got phone with my dad. He said, Joe, I want to tell you something. There's a trophy out there called the Heisman Trophy. It goes to the best college football player in the country. We think you have a chance to win that trophy, but we're not just going to count on your athletic ability, nor the reputation of the University of Notre Dame, but we think by just simply changing the pronunciation of your last name from Theismann to Theismann, we can help you win that trophy. So my parents were okay, but I called my grandmother. My grandmother was the matriarch of our family because we're German by heritage. So I called my grandmother. She says, Granny, I got to run something by. She says, what's that? I said, they want to change the pronunciation of our last name from Theismann to Theismann. She says, I tell you this. She says, actually, the correct pronunciation is Theismann, and what they want to do is closer than what we have now. So she was fine with it.
There you go.
I got the blessing from my grandmother.
That's awesome. Hey, I know it's a fun time. Joe, we've had you on at Radio Row at the Super Bowl many times, and we also had you on quite a bit during the eventual journey of RG3 in Washington. Love what you do. Appreciate everything. You've always been great, insightful, and appreciate your opinions along the way, too.
Appreciate it. I hope to see you at Radio Row this year.
We will be there. We will absolutely.
Watching the Commanders go for a Super Bowl.
Would that not be the greatest thing of all time?
Oh, my goodness.
Be. Yeah. Yep.
I won't have any fingers left. I don't have any nails anymore, but I won't have any fingers left.
Well, good luck Monday. Notre Dame and also Ohio State in the college football championship playoff. Great stuff. Appreciate Joe Theismann. Answered a lot of questions that maybe some of you were asking about in the chat too. And a great story about the name. I always thought is after I had talked to him a few times, eventually I was like, I just don't even know if I want to go there because I'm sure he's had to tell that story. I never actually had ever heard the right story about his name change from Theismann to Theismann, and the matriarch is the one that gave him the okay. Not mom and dad, but the matriarch, his grandmother.
Jim Plunkett.
Yeah,
ruined everything. Right?
Yeah, Jim Plunkett ended up
ruined
with
everything.
He was pretty much a landslide by 800 votes over Theismann. Archie Manning ended up third that year.
I'm the only Cowboys fan in the room. Well, Andrew might be a Cowboys fan, but I'm the only Cowboys
loser.
Yeah, exactly. But I told this to you before, and if we see him at Radio Row, I'll tell him in person. But when I was a kid, I would watch, and could tell when he did Monday Night Football, Cowboys and Redskins, that there was like a palpable disgust for them. And as a kid, a fan where you don't know, I'm like, man, this guy really hates the Cowboys. Now, after being like in broadcasting and understanding 70s and 80s Cowboys and Redskins and the way that rivalry works, like remember when we talked to Dexter Manley and he just ripped into them? Like, no, I respect it that they held on to it. Like talking to Ricky. Ricky, it's palpable disgust, and I have so much respect for it now. It's unbelievable that he was able to not only at least let out a little bit, but be professional in doing so as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a different level of heat back then. But I just think it's very cool that they're back, in just to hear his experience as a Notre Dame / Washington guy. Are you kidding me? Obviously, Notre Dame can still win the national title. Washington can still win the Super Bowl. The odds of either one of those things happening are not in their favor. But, even if they stopped right where they were, what an incredible year for a fan of both sides. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, those two are having a run. John Talty, CBS Sports, joins us on 365 Sports. John, thanks for your patience. We appreciate your time. The story, he and Dennis Dodd, the Big Ten's weaponization of clean cash and lots of it, shifting power dynamics from the South to the North. Do we have enough analytics, data, whatever, for that to be the case, or do we still need to maybe see John another year or two?
Yeah, I think it's the start of something. I think you need, like you said, probably a little bit more time to know whether this is a full trend or not. Certainly, we saw a very long run of SEC success. We saw the Big Ten win last year. Was listening to you guys talk. Seems like you probably think Big Ten's going to win Monday night as well as I do. It's 2 in a row. We'll see kind of where it goes from there. But we're in a unique moment, I think, right now in college football, and I think as we detail in the story, money is critically important, and it's the donor money, which is very important, and it's also the money that you're going to bring in, through TV rights and ticket sales and all that. And the Big Ten is well positioned in both of those areas, and it has been for a while, and it hasn't always led to success. But it feels like there is more of a direct correlation right now between having the most money and having success on the field. Again, as you guys know, it doesn't always work that way in pro sports and there's all kinds of different ways that can kind of go off the rails, but that feels very important right now in college sports. And the Big Ten and others, SEC, of course, isn't going away, but the Big Ten right now in particular feels, really well positioned for this current era of college sports.
Which team that is not Ohio State and Michigan, Penn State, that has this cash, do you think will? Because one of the things, I remember hearing in the, all the realignment debates about who, really deserves the TV money or whatever it was. okay, well, you have a school like Clemson, say, that doesn't have as much money, but they put most of their effort into football. And then you could have a school like, say, Purdue that puts most of their effort into basketball. Is there a school that you've seen now changing their efforts around football more because, like you said, the clean cash is there now?
I think Indiana is a great potential example of that, right? Whereas historically, obviously, one of the blue bloods of college basketball, and you would think that that's where you want to invest your money. Whereas let's look at where they are right now. Football team makes playoff run. They've got a great coach in Curt Cignetti, coach of the year, and some of the different things that those awards. And then on the flip side, basketball is not going very well. You got chance at recent games to fire Mike Woodson. And so do you maybe put a little bit more of the money from a rev share standpoint on the football side, whereas that went in the basketball in the past? Something everybody's got to figure out. This is a Southern school, but I think another good example of that is UNC. And I did some reporting on this in the past. And, different coaching candidates that were up for that job got told different things for what the NIL and rev share money might look like for football. I think because of who Bill Belichick is and his ability to generate attention and I think down the line generate money specifically for football, I could see football getting a bigger share than it would have gotten in the past, where, again, UNC, traditional basketball powerhouse. So you're seeing some of that adjustment happening. But it is an interesting, I think, question, because there are some schools where it's very easy to know, okay, we're a basketball school, let's devote more of the money there. We're a football school, let's devote more of the money there. When you're really good at both, that's where it gets kind of tricky, where, if you're only, say, devoting $2-3 million in rev share to basketball, that's not going to get it done at where we know those numbers are getting at the upper ends of basketball. Flip side, if you're only maybe working with $10 million in football and other people in your conference are working with 15, 16 million just from rev share, puts you at a pretty big disadvantage. So all those schools are going to have to kind of weigh that and try to keep everybody happy. And in some ways, only being good at one makes it at least an easier decision moving forward.
By the way, if you haven't read the story, it's CBS, again, Sports, John Talty and Dennis Dodd, the Big Ten's weaponization of clean cash, and lots of it, is shifting power dynamics from the south to the north. You mentioned Indiana. I saw a quote, I think, from the head coach at Maryland. These are schools that are not known, as you mentioned, so much for football. Does this even allow them to gain better depth as if they don't already have it in that conference?
It could, and I think that's what we're seeing. In some ways, I think the challenge that the SEC went through this past year is that it had better depth, but I think it hurt some of the upper end of the kind of what we're used to, the powers of the SEC. And that's, Alabama, Georgia, teams like that. I think we saw them, come a little closer to earth. And I think you saw schools like South Carolina and Missouri and other Ole Miss that have invested heavily in NIL close that gap a little bit. It felt like it brought some of them down and moved some up. And it created, I think, a really top to bottom, very strong league, but not quite as maybe as of elite teams as we're used to seeing in the SEC in the past. I think the Big Ten, there was more of a gap this past year between, you had some really top teams. You already mentioned a couple of them: Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, of course, Indiana. The rest of the conference, there are a couple of good teams, some at the bottom. But school like Maryland, as you mentioned, Purdue, there's some others that were not operating anywhere close to the upper end of NIL money. And so, we know Ohio State publicly talking about how they've spent $20 million on their roster. Oregon's in a similar space as that. That's the top end. Maryland, I think, was a quarter of that. And there are other programs in the Big Ten that were similar. If, rev share happens next year, like we expect, this year in the summer, that gives them a lot more money to play with that they haven't had in the past. So in theory, kind of like we're seeing in the SEC, you could see some of that kind of talent gap shrink a bit as a lot of money floods the market. And, we've written about it at CBS and 24/7, decent amount at this point, but there's just a lot of money flooding the market. It's why you're seeing huge numbers for QBs and other players. And I think a big part of that are some of these smaller, or maybe less affluent programs having more money to have at their disposal than they had in a long time, really being aggressive and trying to add talent. And that's, driving up the prices on everybody.
John, how do you think that the Big 12 and ACC try and close the gap? Revenue sharing could kind of help that a little bit because then they can, it'll hurt, paying coaches, but it won't hurt paying the athletes. How do they close that gap, though, when you've got somebody with such a big lead on you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two questions there. One, are you going to fully fund the rev share, right? That is, I think, a bit more of a question for certain programs within those two conferences. I think ultimately everybody's probably going to have to get there. But, I think SEC, Big Ten, we expect all of them to do it. I know there's already a couple that, might get close. I think it was Houston recently that said they were going to get more in the 17 to $18 million range, which is still, a lot of money, but not quite at that full 20 and a half number that we expect. So that's going to be a question, for each individual school. Do you have the money and the revenue to be able to do, that number? And important to keep in mind that number is going to go up as time goes on. So it's going to get more and more expensive, just the way we see in the NBA and NFL when they get new TV rights deals and things like that. Cap goes up accordingly as more revenue comes in. So that's something they're going to have to figure out. And then I think you have to be creative in finding different ways. Like if it's a pure money game, as it stands right now, the ACC and Big 12 are always going to be at a disadvantage. It just, the SEC and Big 10 have more money. That's going to continue to happen moving forward. So you've got to find different ways, whether it's, generating revenue differently or, just how you build your roster. I mean, we saw Arizona State have a lot of success this past year. That was not a NIL heavy program. We're seeing them try to reinvest after the year they had. They talk about, activating the Valley, trying to get that, that Phoenix area on board with them. That could be an advantage for Arizona State moving forward. But, in a pure money battle, they're not going to win. So you got to find different ways to do it. And, again, let's go back to pro sports. Moneyball never fully worked for the A's, but they were good for a lot of years. I'm a pretty big baseball fan. We've seen the Rays have a lot of success. Now, I don't know that we've seen a team, I guess the Royals maybe fully break through and win it all with that model. But there are different ways to put together organizations that focus on different things rather than solely the most amount of money. Otherwise, the Yankees or Mets or Dodgers would win every World Series.
What's interesting about the Rays, the Royals, as you mentioned, and the A's for the longest time is that they have great personnel people making decisions and picks and stuff like that. It's just they can't keep up with the second level of when they have to keep the younger player, right?
Exactly. And so, in some way you could say, well, that's going to be an NFL problem. But as we stand right now, we'll see what happens. There's so many big things kind of floating around college sports right now that there are solutions that could fix a lot of these problems. But where that exact problem is happening right now is you might find a guy who is underrated, really good, and after a year of success, a bigger program is going to tamper with him and offer him way more money than you can, and then he's gone. So right now in baseball, you can sign a guy to 4, 5, 6, sometimes longer contracts. You can hold on to them for a while. You can manipulate whether you keep them in the minors or the majors. There's different ways to hold on to guys a little longer. As it stands right now, there's no way to do that because these guys aren't under binding contracts. So, there's I'm here in Alabama. There are a couple guys at South Alabama this past year that were really good, great finds by South Alabama. Guess what? They're gone, and they got significantly more money in the portal to go to Kansas State, and I think another one was Mississippi State. And so that's the real challenge, that even if you find that diamond in the rough, can you hold on to him? And it's happening a lot in college basketball too. We're seeing a lot of guys who are very good mid-major players get offered double, triple, quadruple amount of money, and they end up in a Power 4 spot the next year. So until there's some sort of contracts to keep guys, that's always the risk. And that's, unfortunately, one of the concerning things if you're one of those smaller programs is that even if you figure it all out, how do you hold on to those guys? It's very hard to do.
Can you tell everybody what the heck that instrument is behind you? Is that the fireplace? That's a machine. What is that? For those who don't know what that is.
Typewriter. We don't see those often. Trying to throw back to the old days. To be perfectly honest, I have not used it much. But every once in a while, I send out a typewritten letter. That's probably not a lot of them going out anymore. But yeah, it's an homage to how things used to be.
Yeah, I loved it. I wish I would have kept one before I threw all of mine eventually away for a laptop or computer whenever either one of them happened. And then you wrote that book on Nick Saban. I remember that. We had you on during that time. He seems to be enjoying himself, John. Did you ever think he would fall into that so easily like he has and so effortlessly?
You know, I've always thought he would be great at media because he's so good at explaining things that are very complicated into digestible, easily understandable kind of bits of information. And that, I think, is also why he was such a great coach, was that, you know, able to take complicated defensive concepts and explain it to 18-year-old kids and get them to figure it out. So I always knew he'd be great at kind of the football side of things. What I don't think any of us maybe could have expected is just like how much fun he's been, how much he's embraced that side of things. You know, like there are always rumors of him being fun, right? There's rumors of him having a good sense of humor and all that. We saw bits and pieces of it over the years, but I don't think I ever could have imagined him putting on a Nittany Lions costume on game day. You know, like that to me is a step beyond anything I could have imagined. It seems like he's had a lot of fun with it. He's fit in very seamlessly into it. I think he's been great. I mean, he has surpassed even my expectations for him. I think he's been a great addition, and I think he's definitely given that program some real juice. It was feeling a little stale there for a moment. I think he's really elevated it in a lot of ways.
I think Pat McAfee and Saban, when that McAfee has loosened him up a little bit, and I think that Saban has also helped McAfee kind of understand what he does a little bit better, that he did have a sense of humor, and doesn't mean he was this iron-fisted dictator, although at some point he was that when he was a coach too.
Yeah, I think it's what you see is that they have really good chemistry. And I think, you know, you go back to more than a year ago, I guess 2 years ago, really, Saban started doing these weekly appearances on McAfee's show. And, you know, at the time, I did think it was to set up a media future because it felt like we're getting closer to the end there. And, you know, whether that is exactly what it was or not, it certainly seems to have helped those two guys build a good rapport. I do think McAfee, even when Saban was still a coach, McAfee, he just has this way about him where he can ask these questions that literally none of the rest of us could without getting our heads, you know, chewed off. And he's able to deliver it in a way that kind of puts Saban at ease, and Saban answers questions that he would not otherwise answer. That I think has been very illuminating. I feel like we've learned a lot about Saban, maybe just this kind of last year or two of him being more media friendly and telling some of his stories. And I think it's been exciting to kind of get that side of him. Where again, like, talked to enough players over the years. I wrote a book about him that, like, I feel like I had a pretty good sense of who this guy is. And you would hear from his players, like, he has these moments of being very funny, but I think it's been great for, you know, the overall college football, I think, fan audience to see this other side of him. And you guys can remember, I mean, it was probably 10, 15 years ago where, you know, everybody thought he was a robot and the devil. Yep. And I mean, he's come a long way from being a guy that I think all of college football hated to being this kind of beloved elder statesman role that he's in now.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw that when I saw the weekly show he would do at that restaurant, that you could see that human side of him. Unless you're Shane Gillis and you want to kind of have a little bit too much fun about how Alabama was acquiring all their talent. He kind of barked back at that one, didn't he?
You know, I got to be careful. I don't want to get Coach Saban mad at me now. But, I mean, I wouldn't say Shane was wrong about what he was saying. I mean, I pushed it a little too far. But, you know, there's a way of doing things. And that's, you know, we didn't really get too much into it for our story because you got to be careful. I'm not trying to get sued or anything like that. But it wasn't limited to the SEC. There are other schools that, of course, did it. SMU famously, there are plenty. But there was a way of doing things, right, where there was money exchanged long before NIL. And I think the numbers were smaller. There was a very, you know, organized way of doing it. And that advantage has kind of gone away. And I think that's a part of what we're seeing right now, too. The 10,000, 20,000 here, those numbers are now 200,000, 300,000. Like the money has quadrupled, you know, if not even more from how things used to be, even from when I started covering recruiting, you know, 15, 20 years ago. So there's some of that I think is also changing the college football landscape right now as well.
Thank you, John. Great stuff. You and Dennis, the tag team on the story and also the book on Saban and what you're doing. CBS Sports 247 Sports. John Talty with us on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak and Off the Radar is next. Don Chumador Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. I told you the story about I've had this kind of a nerveless, that's kind of a flared up in my shoulder blade. Earlier today, went and had a massage, and it's helped a little bit. It's still kind of there. But earlier in the week, I was not doing well. It was kind of like almost making me sick to my stomach. And I went to Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. And yes, they have the 48-foot walk-in humidor, all the great brands, Rocky Patel, Cohiba, Padron, and more. But they have Vita Dreams, which can help you kind of get a much more restful sleep. And then they have for bad days. And they told I was hurting. And I've heard that this can help chronic pain. And they said, just take a nibble of one. So me and my attention issues, when I got back to the condo, this was probably Tuesday, I just jawed into a couple of them. And how I made it through that day, I don't know. Because it does basically numb you. And it helped me get through the day. But Craig even said to me, we were walking out the door, why are you so sleepy? I don't know if it was sleepy or I was just groggy. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, they can help you in many ways off Valley Mills in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome to Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, taking a look at a grab bag of stories from around the world of athletics, both college and pros, just depending on the day and the headlines and all of that. But one story that came across earlier that we briefly touched on because I quickly went, hey, that's my territory. I want to let this breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
That was the passing of Bob Uecker. Too monumentous of a passing to just briefly come and go in the headlines of the smokestack. We got to spend at least a couple minutes on this guy whose first introduction for me was when I was a young pup watching Major League for the first time. I mean, that was really when I was introduced to Bob Uecker, and then very quickly realized, oh, he was a player back in his day, and oh, he's the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, and oh, he's one of the most long-standing Johnny Carson late-night guests of all time, and oh, he's this and he's that. But to me, he was the announcer in Major League, and that's how I best knew him and how I'll always most fondly remember him. But it did open the door to me over the years. Always getting a smile on my face when I'd see him shown at a Brewers national telecast. They'd show him in the booth, or he'd make a late-night appearance, or Major League would just be on TV. But Bob Uecker, a.k.a. Mr. Baseball, and a Hall of Famer, passing away at the age of 90. The team announced that earlier today, the Brewers, that is, calling it one of the most difficult days in Milwaukee Brewers history. It said, it is with heavy hearts that we mourn the passing of Bob. To many, he was an announcer and entertainer whose humor and voice transcended the game, but to us, he was so much more. Bob faced a private battle with small cell lung cancer since early 2023, which he met with the same strength and resilience that defined him. Even in the face of this challenge, his enthusiasm for life was always present, never allowing his spirit to falter. He brought joy to countless listeners through his wit, charisma, and love for baseball, Milwaukee, and all of Wisconsin, creating a legacy that will forever be cherished. While his contributions to the game are noteworthy, it is his kindness, humility, and love for family and friends that will hold closest to our hearts. And the Uecker family signed off by saying, we are grateful for the outpouring of love and support during this difficult time as we grieve and celebrate the man we were so lucky to call ours. So that was from the Euchre family via the Brewers. The Brewers had their own statement, which I won't read because it was in the same vein and equally lengthy, but you get the point. I mean, you talk about beloved. You talk about a guy like I don't think I ever heard anything bad about, and not granted I'm running in baseball circles, mind you, but, I mean, everything with this guy just seemed positive and happy, even when the Brewers were losing. And sure enough, he called his last Brewers game this past season, was able to get that in, and unfortunately Pete Alonso and the Mets had something to say late in that game with a big homer by Alonso that turned the tables, and eventually the Brewers lose that game, and that would be his final broadcast this past fall. So, man, an absolute legend. Glad he got to call a playoff game, even though it wasn't like the ideal, like the end of the World Series, Game 7, like you draw it up, but he will live on forever, primarily through the movies. Major League, I mean, that's a classic that will never go anywhere, and you will always have people being reintroduced to him. But you talk about an impact made in the game of baseball alone. He's a Hall of Famer for that, but then entertainment added in, and obviously just a lot of people who just love the man tremendously. So, signed his first pro contract with the Braves back in 1956, made the majors 6 years later. He was in the big leagues for 6 seasons and was not a Hall of Famer by that token, just batted .200 and had 14 homers over that time period. But, he once said, this was from the ESPN write-up, career highlights, I had 2. I got an intentional walk from Sandy Koufax, and I got out of a rundown against the Mets. Those were his 2 career highlights. And, I mean, there's just so many anecdotes, like there's tales, showing him and Bob Gibson and the famous team photo from back in the day where they're holding hands. And there's go on social media, you'll find no end of Bob Euchre tributes and references to Major League or anecdotes about him as a player. I mean, just it's endless and it's deserved, and I'm glad he got to call that one final game, although it wasn't, the Brewers hoisting a World Series trophy. But, man, you talk about leaving an impact. Bob Euchre left an impact.
He did. He's one of my personal heroes. When I was introduced to him was Mr. Belvedere.
Oh,
so it's even before Major League, because I was a kid and it was one of the sitcoms that you could watch. And I have heard him tell stories about Mr. Belvedere behind the scenes that are 10 out of 10 hilarious. He was a comedian that was a broadcaster. And he was an elite broadcaster and probably didn't understand that he was a comedian, or he knew it. But I've been watching Bob Euchre stories and videos all day long. Norm Macdonald, Artie Lang have some great stories that are not safe for work. I just saw one before with Al Michaels talking about when he and Howard Cosell and Euchre did baseball games, and how Howard Cosell didn't really know that much about baseball. Howard Cosell was a know-it-all. And they were doing a game where Howard was like, they've got to bunt in this situation. And Euchre's like, well, Howard, you wouldn't bunt in this situation. It's a terrible idea. And he says, okay, Yuki, you don't have to be so truculent. You know what that means? He's like, yeah. If I borrowed your truck and then I brought it back, that's the truck you lent. And just stuck it to Howard Cosell like that. A great Johnny Carson guest, a great Letterman guest too. After then he kind of moved over to that side. Just the best. I told the story in the triple option. Smokey, you were on vacation one time and the Brewers were coming, and I told you, I was like, hey, I'm going to go up and do the show from the Rangers game. And I called John Blake, and I went up there and I did the show. And he wasn't there because he had a family thing. I didn't meet him. So it was just a bummer, but he was back for the rest. But yeah, I really hate that I didn't get to meet Bob Euchre.
I met him one time, and it was for like 30 seconds. It was in a spring training game because the Brewers, of course, are in Peoria. The Rangers are in, Surprise, which is a 15, 20-minute drive based on traffic. And just the nicest guy ever. I fumbled all over myself just because I thought he's just the best thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many classic quotes from Major League, but just a bit outside. Yeah. Like, that'll obviously live forever and ever, and you still hear people who, I don't even know if they know that's where it came from. They still repeat that constantly in everyday kind of discussion about certain things.
My favorite is one GD hit. Then Tommy goes, "You can't say GD on the air." And he goes, "Nah, no one's listening."
Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, and I was reading a couple different write-ups. Like ESPN had one was very in-depth and thorough, and it highlighted a lot. And he talked about how he wasn't, like you were talking about him being a comedian, but he was a baseball guy first and foremost. And he talked about, at times where Major League led to people thinking he was just like this drunken, like buffoon at times. But he said, like, when I got in that baseball booth, like, it was about the game. Like, we had fun moments and everything, but it was about baseball. And I did get to hear him call a few games, like, here and there. And he was great. He was amazing. But Bob Uecker passing away after a battle with cancer, age 90, a huge loss for the Milwaukee faithful, just in terms of the town. He loved Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in terms of the Brewers franchise, in terms of the game of baseball, and also entertainment as well. But, I mean, dude, one of a kind, and it does feel like I don't know, it just feels like the end of an era in so many ways, right? Just because he was so unique, and there's no one like him. I mean, no one like him that you could compare it to nowadays. So, yeah, very unfortunate, but I'm sure the tributes will continue to pour in, and we'll see some stuff throughout baseball season as well. I'm sure the Brewers are hard at work figuring out how to best honor him, and they will do so throughout the next few months once the season kicks off. But Major League 1 was my favorite. Major League 2 was really good. After that, we don't need to talk about Major League 3. That was not worth visiting. But, yeah.
Hell of a dude. Hell of a story. A multi-dimensionally talented guy. One thing he could do is make fun of himself and have fun doing it. So
yep. So sad day there, but what a life, what a career. I don't think he is leaving going, I'm sure we all have our regrets and whatnot, but you talk about he lived a pretty full life. It sounded like he did a lot of what he wanted to do, and that's a good way to go. So, rest in peace to the legend Bob Uecker, passing away today at age 90. Meanwhile, we touched on basketball a little bit yesterday in terms of the Big 12 and just kind of talking about where things stand right now, but did have a pretty big game last night as the number 2 Iowa State Cyclones took down KU in Ames, 74-57. Iowa State now 15-1, 5-0 in the Big 12. Kansas drops to 12-4, and now 3-2 in the Big 12. And I just wanted to open it for any thoughts you might have. I know Paul's got a very personal investment, obviously, with
he's already told us
rabid Jayhawks fan.
He's here, so he survived.
Yeah. He survived the Fury. I guess, I don't know.
Iowa State's really good.
But I wanted to say, just like, give props to Iowa State first and foremost. They're damn good.
They're deep. They're experienced. They're loaded. They can do every particular style you want to play, and they can overwhelm you. They have a road trip to West Virginia this weekend, but, man, they are something to watch.
Yeah,
they're fun to watch.
They are very fun to watch. And again, they're doing it with one of their better players, and they didn't miss a beat. And, of course, playing at Hilton Coliseum is, I think there's maybe 5 other places that you can put that are as hard or harder to play. It's not much. I mean, Scott Drew took you there for a reason, because
back when I was just getting to Waco.
Because Kansas wasn't really the fair comparison, because Kansas, I mean, like Fog Allen Fieldhouse is
his deal. The reason he said, he goes, I want us to one day have a crowd that can at least be near the same atmosphere. About Allen Fieldhouse. What they have in Ames, Iowa.
Iowa State's was the better comparison, because it's not a fan base who, I mean, they don't have 30 banners up on the ceiling for a bunch of different things,
right?
And they're still enthusiastic. That's what he was trying to get across. And when you go out on the road in the Big 12 and you start slow and discombobulated, I mean, it's not going to be good for you. And every Kansas fan has the same complaint. And it's right now that Bill has – look, DeJuan Harris, he is just the Bill Selfiest player ever at point guard. He loves KJ Adams. He loves Hunter Dickinson. And he won't play a 4-guard lineup.
Nope. By the way, Texas Tech almost had Iowa State beat. They lost in overtime at home to Iowa State. That's one of the toughest games the Cyclones have played this year.
Yeah, so KU with another loss, their second in Big 12 play. And, just a dominant performance by Iowa State, win by, 18 against the Jayhawks. No, I am not doing my math right. That's 17. There we go.
Double digits.
17-point loss there by the Jayhawks. So big top 10 win, big conference win for the Cyclones. We'll see where they take it, but they are definitely spearheading and leading the charge of the Big 12 is the best, or wanting to maintain that. They might have the best team in Iowa State. We will see. Also last night, Houston beat West Virginia 70-54. The top 10 Cougs are 5-0 in the Big 12, so they're right there neck and neck with ISU. Then you got Utah beating TCU 73-65 in Fort Worth. So both those teams kind of in the same spot, sort of fighting for down there in the bottom part of the conference standings, and not quite the bottom, because that is occupied by Colorado, who is 0-5. They fall last night to Cincinnati 68-62. Have you guys had any? I mean, y'all know I'm not a huge college basketball fan. I dip in, dip out. I'll definitely get more interested as we get closer. Like, college football is just my love and my passion, but the addition of the 4 schools, have you noticed anything good, bad, otherwise that has affected the league at all?
Arizona's 5-0 in the conference. They just beat Baylor. They were 6-5 entering the conference and played some pretty good people. They're red hot. They've won 7 straight. Utah's kind of right there in the middle. They opened up with a game at Baylor, and they'll be right there in the middle before it's all said and done. Colorado is obviously struggling, as is Hurley, brother Hurley, at Arizona State right now with the Sun Devils.
Yeah, I don't think it – I mean, it's still a tough league. It's a great league. I don't like the, no return trip thing, but for everybody.
And Baylor went to Arizona, stayed there.
Yeah.
Both the men and women had to do that because they were playing so closely, and that's probably a smart thing to do.
But, yeah, you lose to somebody, you don't necessarily get them back. You only get a couple of those per schedule, which I loved about the previous incarnation of the league, but – bottom line is, it's still like, okay, so you give up 2 games a year against, Kansas, and you get Arizona and BYU, especially in this thing, who are both really, really good teams right now. Obviously, Colorado and Arizona State could be better, but you've added 2 teams that are super, super good right now. One of whom is about to have the number 1 player in the country for a year next year in AJ DeMansa. So I'm happy with it. I love it. It's still very entertaining.
And I'll close it out with this. The no surprise here headline of the day: EA Sports College Football 26 will be released this summer. So the highly anticipated College Football 25 came out last summer. It was a big to-do. I don't think we're going to have quite the build-up for this version of it. I'm sure like the streaming and the playing of it online, like that'll be as big as ever. But I don't think like the anticipation level will be quite what it was last year when it was the first time in a decade that it was coming back. But there will still be anticipation for it, and plenty of people seemed excited by what seems as though it's a no-brainer announcement that the game is coming back for the 2nd straight year. That will be released this summer, and we'll get to, I guess, have speculation on who will be the cover people, cover boy, whatever they decide to do. Of course, last year it was Donovan Edwards, which that wasn't the greatest choice. We knew that at the time, though. We kind of called that out when that happened. But Quinn Ewers, Travis Hunter, obviously that was a good call on Hunter in particular. But, College Football 26 is official, will be released probably sometime around July, it looks like. So that vibes with the usual drop in. There you go. There's a few things off the radar.
You just hope whoever you pick, Craig, thank you, the cover boy doesn't transfer between sometime during the summer and the start of the year, which God knows that might happen. Mm-hmm. A quick note, then we break, come back with Hall of Famer Graham Harrell. This is from Jane Slater, covers the NFL on the NFL Network. One thing to watch on the Jerry and initial discussions with Deion. 2 people with knowledge of the situation tell me that Sanders approached Colorado AD Rick George on Tuesday about additional money for NIL and his staff, not for his own contract. He was met, according to Jane and her sources, with resistance. The University of Colorado would neither confirm or deny the information. When I reached out, Deion didn't respond when we reached out multiple times for a comment. So there's that.
I mean, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
But I can see both sides there, certainly. Like, if you're Colorado, you're like, we got what we got. Like, we can't really drum up billionaires out of the ground. And if you're Deion, like, make me stay, give me more money for a better team. And so, yeah, that's understandable, and we'll see if that
how much money should he get out of all the money he generated?
I mean, that's his argument, too, is like how much money you have that you wouldn't have if I wasn't here. I need about $10 million of that to go get me a offensive line or wide receivers or whatever you want to go get. Yeah.
All right, when we come back to the Hall of Famer, he was a part of that class introduced yesterday evening by College Football's Hall of Fame. Former Tech great Graham Harrell. He's next. This is 365 Sports.
It's time to start something new at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive into 2025 with incredible deals on our full lineup of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Whether you're conquering the trails in a Jeep Grand Cherokee, towing in style with the Ram Heavy Duty, or cruising the city in a sporty and luxurious Ram 1500, we've got the perfect ride for you. Come see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we make buying cars easy. Allen Samuels, your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
We will hear from Graham Harrell here momentarily. Yesterday was cool to see that. Graham Harrell's name, along with the others we mentioned earlier today to start the show, a part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I think you have to think that when you think of Graham Harrell, you think about Michael Crabtree and the upset against Texas in Lubbock that was so dramatic, and also the thousands of yards he threw for and touchdowns too. But that has to be the moment when you have that moment everybody remembers you for.
Yeah, absolutely. And Graham's with us, Garrett?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, not yet.
That Crabtree moment, I was with Tyler Holcomb, who coaches at he's Bosqueville now. We were at Hooters watching that game, and he's a big Texas guy, and they threw that pass, and actually most of the restaurant was all Texas people, and I don't know if I've ever, for not having a dog, I didn't care one way or the other about Texas Tech, but I've never been in a place where I felt happier to be around miserable people in my life, because it just the whole bubble burst and all the chicken wings and boobies in the world.
He had a pick, had an interception that was dropped right before that. The pick.
Yeah.
Hell of a player, put up a huge amount of numbers, of course, and we'll get hopefully get Graham Harrell here in just a moment. I just reached out to him again to make sure. I'm going to leave here in just a little bit. I'm hoping to have a chance to be a part of the interview with Graham, but if not, Paul and Craig can take it the rest of the way. I've got a high school football dinner, a banquet to do, and speak at a little bit later on this evening. Mike Leach, Texas Tech, Graham Harrell, and that offense. I mean, you just think about the numbers they put up. I saw a note from Kim earlier. Kim's still obviously frustrated with how the Leach and Texas Tech thing finished, how that ended, along with a lot of other fans of Texas Tech football. But Graham Harrell, that almost like that play seems frozen with tick, tick, tick. The hard part that gets overlooked in that play was not the throw, not the catch, that there was a player that was also a part of that play, not the original defender, but somebody else that could have just grabbed him and pushed him out of bounds. And Crabtree got loose and went down and scored just a few yards
Blake
later.
Gideon, I think. Wasn't that who that was?
Who?
Was
Blake
it
Gideon,
Blake
yeah.
Gideon?
I thought Gideon's the one that also dropped the pick earlier.
He was.
Yeah. And so that's a part of
Maybe
that play too that lives forever.
No, I know Gideon dropped the interception, but I'm trying to
I don't
remember if
think he was a part of it. I'm not so sure that wasn't the kid from golly, he might have been an East Texas kid that was a part of that tackle that he got spun away.
Let's see. Who was
and then Graham scored.
Yeah, number 3. I'll have to go look back up the roster. But, yeah, I definitely remember Gideon in the interception. That seems to stand out. That was a long time ago now. That was like a really long time ago.
08, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Over 15 years ago.
Well,
Wow.
and that's why he's now there's certain requirements about the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of players you might think are, but there's certain requirements they have in the National Football Foundation about Hall of Fame and certain amount of years after, of course, you have played. Now, Saban stopped coaching a year ago, and he's in immediately, but for players, that is not how it works out that particular way.
So Curtis Brown.
Gilmer.
From Gilmer was the guy that was actually holding on to Crabtree and was trying to spin him out of bounds, and he ended up getting spun out of bounds, and Crabtree broke free and ran the extra few yards. But, yeah, Brown was the last one to touch him. And then did we really – were the graphics this bad when we watched TV, or have they gotten worse over time because they've been – when you watch a game from 2008 on YouTube, it's so did it look like that at the time?
I don't know. Are we just or because we've seen 4K now?
That's it.
Does
4K.
it look better?
Is that what it is?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Because how did we watch this? How did we know what was going on?
Yeah, I watch games that I remember vividly, and it was like, was it grainy? Or I think it's just because it's the 4K that we've seen it in such vivid detail.
Okay, so let me go show you a film of 1968's Ohio State-Michigan game.
Yeah, it just
talk about grainy.
Yeah, it's grainy, but when we watched it looked fine.
Yeah, it's amazing sometimes. That just always pops in my head. It's like, man, I know I couldn't have seen it that, muddy when I was watching it. You can hardly tell numbers in some of these clips. It's so grainy. But, yeah, I think that was Earl Thomas alongside that was over there in the vicinity of that play as well. So,
hell of an NFL player.
He spun away from Brown or pulled away from Brown. But, yeah, I think that was Earl Thomas that was also over there. It's hard to tell since I can barely see the numbers in this footage I'm watching. But, yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Did you bring that up? We've been talking about the Cowboys and how boring they are. That was the last time I was genuinely excited by a moment. Was because I was just standing outside the locker room and Earl Thomas ran out. I was like, "Come get me, Jerry!" And that was the last interesting thing that happened there.
Yeah.
So
it's a long time ago.
Yeah,
like we said.
And there's 30 of us out there. I was like, "That Earl Thomas just running down to the other locker room? What was he doing? That was weird." All right, well, got to get to work.
He was a fantastic player, no question. And that's during a time where that could have been another team that played for a national title in 08. Beat Texas, and then Oklahoma
then they
had lost to Texas earlier, and then they just smoked Texas Tech in that game to close out the Big 12.
Yeah, I was in Norman for that game, and they got absolutely smacked around. That was a very deflating moment for Texas Tech football because there was the national championship opportunities and possibilities that were out there, and the big win over Texas and what that created. It was that was the peak of Texas Tech football, guys, that we've seen so far. That was by far the biggest, hottest, most ready to explode into the national scene they had ever been and did in many cases, because obviously that play still lives in infamy all these years later. But, yeah, they went and they beat Oklahoma State, and then it was 2 weeks, I guess, 3 weeks after that Texas game. So they beat Texas, turn around the next week, beat the mess out of Oklahoma State, and then they turned around after a bye week, no less. After a week to get ready for Oklahoma and rolling into Norman, they got beat very, very badly, very badly, 65-21, and that then led to the three-way tie. Oklahoma got the nod, and they got to go play in the national title and go lose another one, which is what they did very well, especially in the 2000s, was lose national title opportunities, except for 2000 itself. But after that, it was losses to LSU and USC and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I tell you what, they were picked to go into the championship game by a hanging chad.
Oh, yeah.
It was like an election result.
There was a good argument for Texas because they had beat them.
No, they did. And they were, it's kind of like that argument that TCU lost to Baylor head up. This was a three-way split between those three back in 2008, but that there were a lot of people that didn't look at it that way, and that Texas might have still been their highest-ranked team. It came down to decimal points. Even then, it still was controversial, and eventually Oklahoma, as you said, got smoked in the championship game. When we come back, we're going to try to regroup here and find Graham Harrell. Also today, Mickey Spagnola around the corner. This is 365 Sports.
It's time to start something new at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive into 2025 with incredible deals on our full lineup of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Whether you're conquering the trails in a Jeep Grand Cherokee, towing in style with the Ram Heavy Duty, or cruising the city in a sporty and luxurious Ram 1500, we've got the perfect ride for you. Come see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we make buying cars easy. Allen Samuels, your friend in the car business.
Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness.
It's time to start something new at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive into 2025 with incredible deals on our full lineup of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Whether you're conquering the trails in a Jeep Grand Cherokee, towing in style with the Ram Heavy Duty, or cruising the city in a sporty and luxurious Ram 1500, we've got the perfect ride for you. Come see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we make buying cars easy. Allen Samuels, your friend in the car business.
Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Okay, I'll call right back. Welcome back, 365 Sports. There's Smokey in the midst of a wardrobe change, which means he's a true showman. Let me call Graham Harrell right now.
Yeah, Graham, the connection, he wasn't able to get the video connection. We'll have him here in just a moment. Emery Winter dialing up what we have for 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. Yeah, I did a wardrobe change as I'm getting ready for that football banquet here at Midway High School in about 30 to 45 minutes. We're now joined, and how about being able to introduce former Texas Tech quarterback as a college football Hall of Famer with David Smoak, Craig Smoak, and Paul Catalina. Graham, congratulations. What's this feel like for you?
It was exciting. I really had no idea it was coming, or had no idea. I guess I just didn't know the timeline because every spring it feels like for the last few years I get like notified that I'd been nominated. And I was kind of about to the point where it's like, man, I'm tired of being nominated because the same people take congrats every year. At some point, it's almost like embarrassing, you know what I mean? But I didn't know when the inductions were, so I figured it already passed this year, and probably in April or something, I'd get more notifications about it and have to say thanks to the same people again. And then, yesterday morning, found out I got in this year, and it was a cool moment and an exciting day, and I got to hear from a bunch of people that I haven't heard from in a long time saying congrats, so that was cool too.
Graham, I'll just first start out asking you about the legacy of Mike Leach and what he meant to your career, and a large part of the reason that you're sitting here as a college football Hall of Famer now.
Oh, no question. And, obviously I don't think you can – there's no way to really, I think, really quantify how much Leach was a part of it, And I was actually thinking about it yesterday when something like that happens. You think about things and you think about your college career and you hear from people that you played with or whatever. And obviously Crabtree went in a few years ago, I think, into the College Football Hall of Fame, and he's a guy that played a big role in it. And you just think about how much fun he and I had together and how much success we had together. But I was like you said, I was thinking if it weren't for Mike Leach, there never would have been like Crabtree and Graham, throwing touch and having some of the memories that we had. His offense made that possible. The way he ran a program made that possible. I think it took Texas Tech to heights that it had never been up until that point. Because, Leach, I guess Texas Tech had always kind of been the stepchild of like the Texas universities. And then Leach forgot that, you know what I mean? And he made it into, he forgot he wasn't supposed to be the big dog and told us we were supposed to win. And so it became an expectation out there. And so, like I said, I don't think you could say enough about what Leach did for my career and what he did for that university. And like without Coach Leach and playing in that offense and then playing out there when he was there, like you said, there's probably no way we'd be having this conversation right now.
Graham, how much does that win over Texas, the play with Crabtree, just what that meant to Texas Tech at the time? I mean, how much has that followed you the last, I hate to say this, but the 15 or so years? We're all getting older. Time flies by, but it's been 15 years since that happened, 16 now, 17 actually, I guess. But just how much has that followed you throughout, and people still bring that up, I'd imagine, constantly for you?
Oh, yeah. That's anytime that's the one thing that everyone always remembers, and it's like, oh, you were on that play when y'all beat Texas. Yeah, I was on the play when we beat Texas. And the nice thing for me is like it's a good. I was on the right side of it. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there's plenty of people. Every now and then I run into what's his name, Gideon, the safeties, the kid that was a safety that dropped the ball the play before on had an opportunity to intercept it, and he probably gets that brought up a lot too. But he's on the wrong side of it, and so. Thankfully for me, I was on the right side of that. But like you said, that's probably the one play that, if you bring up Texas Tech football, I would assume that any fan and people that aren't even fans of Texas Tech, like, oh, I remember that one time. Remember when Texas Tech beat Texas? Yeah, I actually played in that game, And so, like you said, that's following me around forever. And obviously that was an incredible night and a fun night. But there's so many other memories from those times that I remember so fondly. It's like, man, I wish you'd remember some of these games. Like my favorite one's probably when we beat A&M at A&M my sophomore year, in a similar situation. But that's the game that always gets remembered. And like I said, thankfully we were on the right end of that one, so I guess I don't mind it too much.
Yeah, you filled in a blank for us because we knew Blake Gideon was involved. We couldn't remember exactly, but yeah, he dropped the ball right before. That's what it was. And then we were trying to remember who was on the play at the sideline that Crabtree broke away from. That was Curtis Brown. So we were, you filled that in for us. But you just mentioned, I had the follow-up, which was, I'm sure you probably get tired of hearing about that, as great as it was. It's a great legacy thing and everything, but what is your other favorite things? What do you wish people talked about more? What does stand out to you more than just that moment in time? And you kind of touched on it there, but could you expand and maybe even if there's one or two others that stand out in that way, add those to the mix as well?
Yeah, I think my favorite, the Texas game is obviously an incredible game, an incredible memory. Like you said, it might just be because it's been brought up so much that it's kind of like, it's not even my favorite game anymore. But my favorite one is, like I said, with my sophomore year. It was my first Big 12 game I ever played. We were up against A&M. We were at their place, and we were up the whole game and then go down in a very similar fashion with around 2 minutes left in the game. They take the lead for the first time, and Kyle Field's rocking like the loudest it's been all day, and we drive down and throw a touchdown to Robert Johnson through a fade, actually on the right side again. It was he was running down the right sideline through a fade for a touchdown to beat him, and I think I like that one so much. Just one, because A&M always bothered me for whatever reason. I disliked A&M more than I disliked Texas, and it was at their place, so you felt like you beat all 100,000 people instead of just the other team. So that was that one is probably my favorite, like of all the single plays or game winners. Like that one was fun, and obviously the Insight Bowl game when we came back from, I think we were down 38-7 with midway through the third quarter. And at the time, it was the biggest comeback in the history of bowl games. I don't know if it still is or not, but that was a fun game too. And so that's a memory. And that one I always remember just because it felt like nothing went right. Everything was as bad as it could be. We're getting booed by our own fans coming off the field at halftime, and you're like, man, this is about as bad as you could ever. I mean, this is a miserable feeling. And basically, we would go in the locker room, and they just like, hey guys, this is why you came to Texas Tech, because anywhere else in the country, this game's over, but you came to Texas Tech, we're going to win this game. I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. So then, we kind of we get things rolling and come back and win in overtime. That was an incredible game and an incredible memory. And honestly, another great game, and we ended up on the wrong side of it. But my junior year, probably my favorite game from that year was, we played at Oklahoma State and got in just an absolute shootout. And we threw for like 640 yards or something. It's the most yards it's offensively probably the best game we ever played, and we ended up losing at the end. But it was just a fun, to me, it was like the epitome of a Big 12 football game at the time. Both teams have 800 yards of offense. We lose like 52-48 or something crazy like that. And it was just a blast of a game. It was back and forth, and every time we touched it, we're going to score as fast as humanly possible. And then they are too, but hopefully we score last. And that was an awesome game as well. But there were so many great ones. I mean, all three against A&M that we won were fun. We lost to Oklahoma State that junior year, but then my senior year, right after the Texas game, we smacked them when they were a pretty good football team as well, and that was a great one. So, it's hard to narrow them down, but that was just a fun time and a fun time to be a part of Texas Tech football, and got to do it with some great people, fun people to play with, great friends, and some fun players to play with as well. So it was I don't think I could draw up a better college career than that.
Graham, what's next for you when it comes to coaching? You had that opportunity. It looked like it was about to erupt for you when you were at USC. Then they had the changes, and where you have been most recently, I guess it was Purdue, West Virginia. What is next for you?
We'll figure that out. Hopefully I can stay somewhere here in Texas. That'd be nice. And but that's right now. I'm actually. Well, not at this exact moment, but back at my place in Tyler, so out in East Texas, and enjoying being in East Texas. And like I said, we'll figure out where to go from there.
I was at that house on Jennifer's wedding weekend. They were having all the bridesmaids, and that was a big deal. Brittany and all, but I was there, and it's a beautiful location, man. And what a beautiful view you have behind you at that house.
Oh, I love that home. Yeah, that's my happy place. If somehow I could just be there all the time, that's what I would do. But we got to work at some point, and so I'll get into something. But I'm not shocked you were there. If there's an opportunity to host something, Brittany's going to host it. So
yes, she's going to do that.
And I try to get as far away as possible when that happens. So.
Graham, you brought up the A&M games that you played and some of the ones that are forgotten. I'm curious from your perspective, because Mike Leach did not like Texas, and he did not like A&M, and he especially loved to make fun of A&M. But there seems to be, and he really did throw a little bit of gasoline on the rivalry, which A&M tries to pretend doesn't exist. From your perspective as a Texas Tech Red Raider through and through, is Texas A&M a rival, and are they just embarrassed to admit it because most of the time, the last 15 years that they played, it was Tech and not A&M that won that game?
Absolutely. I mean, at some point they got to beat us to make it a rivalry, in my opinion.
Oh my God!
But no, I mean, if you ask me, and I mean, during my time at least, and it might have been just because Coach Leach threw so much shade at them, like they were our number one rival, you know, and it was kind of interesting, I think, at the time, just because the rivalries kind of were kind of weird in the Big 12. Because if you ask, in my opinion, if you ask Texas Tech who's your rival, you say A&M. If you ask A&M to say Texas, if you ask Texas, they might say Oklahoma. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, everyone had the people they couldn't stand. For us, for whatever reason, and like again, it might have been the way that Leach handled everything. Texas A&M was a team that we disliked the most, and but I think they're also just an easy team to make fun of. You know what I mean? They got their what Leach calls a fake army that walk around and do whatever they do in pregame and do all that stuff. And so they were an easy team to take shots at. And then, like I said, we always beat them, you know, and when I was there, so that even made it more fun to dislike them because, you know, if you beat the team you dislike, then that's a little extra for you. But, yeah, I would definitely say, and it's really, you know, I hate that whole, you know, to me, the worst thing about the Big 12 or that Big 12 breaking up is the rivalries that it did break up. You know what I mean? And I do think it was awesome to see Texas A&M play Texas again this year. And I wish that Tech would still play those schools. And I understand why you don't schedule them as a non-conference game. But, like, to me, when A&M left and Tech stopped playing them, that was the end of a great rivalry, at least on the Texas Tech end.
You know, you have a connection from where you live right there outside of Tyler. When you took over with Green Bay, you replaced Matt Flynn, who had been there a couple, and he's, of course, went to Lee High School in Tyler. Did you ever think about that?
So me and Flynn were there at first together, and he was one of my best friends up there. So that's actually how I met my wife, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but she's an Aggie too. So as much as I hate on him, I married one, so I can't. I better be careful. Because after that, my first year at Green Bay, that was the year we actually won the Super Bowl, and Flynn was there, and I rode back to Tyler, or I came back to Texas. Me and Flynn rode together, and I spent some time there in Tyler with Matt and Brad Bergfeld, and ended up meeting my wife through him. So, he's still a friend, and like you said, a good Texas boy that we ran in. I never even met him until I got to Green Bay. So he's a great dude, though.
Graham, congratulations, man. It was great. When I saw that name popped out on the list when I got the email yesterday, thinking about your father, and I know what he's battling. It's not easy right now, but wanted to throw in the name of your father, who was a great football coach, too, for you and the brother. So thanks for your time. Congratulations, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you talking about, asking about my dad.
Yeah, Graham Harrell, Hall of Fame quarterback out of Texas Tech, went to Ennis High School where his dad was the coach. His dad's struggling right now, but great to have him on. Brittany, one of Jennifer's best friends, lifelong friends.
Who is Jennifer?
Your sister.
Yeah, you just need to clarify sometimes. Like,
here's the deal. Jennifer.
Listen, Jennifer Smoak transcends all, and people should know who she is by this point.
She's Jennifer Smoak.
I'm trying to help the audience a little bit.
I'm sure she thinks that.
She absolutely. Oh my God!
I get it. If she
what do you mean they didn't know me?
And here's the thing: most days I can be confident if we said something about her that she wouldn't see it.
No, this is going to be one she sees. Yeah,
because it's Graham Harrell, her best friend's husband.
Yep.
I know she's going to see me make that joke.
I alerted her of it.
I will get a text from Jennifer.
We all will. All right.
Shout out to Brittany, and I never thought I'd hear Brad Bergfeld's name on this show, but here we are. And Matt Flynn. We've obviously talked with Matt on this show before, but that's definitely some Tyler connections and memories for me as well, some names being brought up. But I did want to make mention of, we talked about that comeback, or he brought up that comeback and the legendary 31 points that they came down from, and he was saying he wasn't sure if it was still a record or not, and it is. But it has some company, because you might remember TCU and Oregon in the Alamo Bowl back in January of 2016, the massive comeback from the Horned Frogs. That tied the biggest comeback in college football history. So there is some company there, but I do remember the game he was referring to there, and Yeah, he had some fun moments, and I bet that does get tiring when it's all about that one single play, but my God, that one play was so massive. It's like impossible. It's like not asking Adam Vinatieri about like walking off the Super Bowl, but instead asking him about like the regular season, right? Like there's these just big plays, and I'm sure it does get tiresome because you did so much more than that, but that one was as big as I remember watching it. I mean, that was the Ohio State, sack, fumble, scoop, and score from a few days ago. Like, it was that level, man. There was national championship appearances on the line, Big 12 title on the line, and I'll never forget just jaw hitting the floor when he broke from Curtis Brown and ran into the end zone. And now I'm glad we fill in the blank. I knew Gideon was involved, but I'm watching this fuzzy clip, and I'm like, well, it wasn't on that. He had dropped the interception. I completely forgot about that. But, shout out to Graham Harrell. Thanks for joining us.
When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, gives us his perspective on where the Cowboys are looking for a head coach. I wonder how he feels about Dion, about that, because I know Mickey well enough to know that he's not going to maybe entertain it until it gets there, which we shouldn't so much. But I'm curious his thoughts on it. This is 365 Sports.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitschke Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitschke Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitschke Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitschke Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Smokey is off to the Midway High School football banquet, so it is Paul and Craig. And now Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, from the outside looking in, it appeared that Jerry Jones was happy, would have been happy to bring Mike McCarthy back. And then maybe Mike McCarthy just decided he needed a new step, and now the Cowboys are looking for a new coach. Is that right, or is this more mutual than maybe it's getting reported or credit for?
Well, I think if McCarthy wanted out, they probably wouldn't have spent several days talking about a new contract, right? And they did talk about a new contract regardless of what has been reported. And I think it just came down to, maybe Jerry didn't give him the length that he was looking for. And then, it's always money. I think I said that last week when somebody said, well, what's taking so long? Well, money always talks. And so I think that, his agent probably thought, well, we can get a better deal. While the coach couldn't interview, his agent surely could go behind the scenes and, kind of do his reconnaissance to see who's interested and how much might be available. Now, his agent, Don Yee, is the same agent for Sean Payton and Harbaugh. And those guys signed 5-year deals, and one was $18 million a year and one was $16 million a year. So I'm sure he was thinking, well, that's what my guy should get. So, yeah, I think they just couldn't see eye to eye on length and the total package.
So how much weight do you put behind the Deion Sanders reports? Do you feel that is a fit and that it would be legitimate, or is it more somebody in the Robert Saleh, Leslie Frazier, Kellen Moore realm?
Well, I think the Deion thing is not as serious as being kind of labeled. He's angling for a contract extension, right? And I'm sure he wants to go to the table in Colorado and say, well, Jerry Jones might, hire me for this job. So I think there's a little of that going on more so than, being real serious about hiring a guy that's only been basically coaching for 2 years, right? And then with the other guys, their interviews, you got to go through the interview process. You got to, adhere to the Rooney Rule. And then, I think it was natural that with the association with Kellen Moore that they would at least talk to him on a Zoom call. Sounds like they're going to do it tomorrow. So, when you look at Jerry and his hiring, sometimes familiarity counts a lot. And I would think that's how the Kellen Moore thing shows up. Now, is he looking for an offensive coordinator to be the head coach or a defensive coordinator? And I don't think we, discern which way he would go. In my opinion, I want a head coach. I don't want to hire a coordinator. And just doing a little bit of, talking to people, it's like, well, that guy might not be available. So, like the Chargers did when they hired Harbaugh. Is he an offensive coach? Is he a defensive coach? Or is he a head coach? And he's a head coach. And I think that's what would be preferable if it was available. But offhand, I don't know that guy's out there to be able to come in. So he may have to look at elevating a coordinator.
Will it tell you, what is the head, last time with Mike McCarthy, changing from Garrett to McCarthy wasn't too much of a change in the style of coach. It's offensive to offensive. So would it tell you if he switches to a defensive-minded coach that he feels that's the philosophy shift that they need, or is it just about the guy?
Well, let's put it this way. Whatever you do, even if you shift to a defensive coach, the first question is, who's your offensive coordinator? And you better make the quarterback happy, right? Because that's the Cowboys' calling card. All these other teams don't know who their quarterback is. The Cowboys at least know who their quarterback is. And, when I keep hearing this stuff about, well, it's not a coveted job. Well, if I'm a guy interviewing for a job, I'm looking at my quarterback, because the reason these jobs are open is because those teams didn't have credible quarterbacks. Now, the Bears might at some point with Caleb Williams, but, the reason they were in the situation they were in was because he was a raw rookie, probably not ready at the beginning to do the job. So I think you got to consider that you're changing offensive systems for the third time in 4 years after moving on from Kellen Moore to Mike McCarthy, and now you're moving 2 years after McCarthy to who knows who at this point. So I think you got to keep an eye on satisfying and getting somebody that's adaptable to what the quarterback's talents are.
Mickey, one of some of the more ridiculous rumors out there are the ones about like, well, they could move on from Dak and do this. Well, that's like, even if they wanted to trade Dak, if Dak even wanted to be traded, there's still $100 million in dead cap money that comes. So what I think,
don't even ask.
But so I think what that leads into, though, for me is what the Cowboys need to do and what their focus will probably be is this is the quarterback that is going to be there for at least 2 years and probably 3 or 4. But at least for the first 2, it's Dak Prescott. So the roster build, the remodeling, whatever they have to do within their cap constraints will all be about maximizing Dak Prescott's contract with them. Correct?
Well, it better be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we forget that he finished second 2 years ago for the NFL MVP, right? Led the league with 36 touchdown passes. So it's not like they're sitting there going, well, I don't know. We got Sam Darnold here. Should we re-sign him? Dak's here. He ain't going anywhere. It would be salary cap suicide to do that after 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mickey, is there someone you would just personally like to see them interview or consider that you're a fan of, whether they do it or not? Look, you kind of willed Micah Parsons into existence on the draft a few years ago, where every time we had you on, you said they've got to draft this Micah Parsons guy, and most people were like, well, he won't even be there then, right? When they get there, and then they did, and that's worked out pretty darn well. So who's a coach that you'd be at least intrigued by that may not be on everybody's lips right now?
I can't remember if I told you this or someone else, and this was like a month ago when it was like, well, what if, who would you want to hire? And so I thought I was being funny. And I said, Nick Saban. And they were going, what? And I said, all right, I want somebody like that. I want somebody that's a head coach, not a coordinator. A guy that can get up in front of 70 guys 5 days a week and hold their attention with what he has to say. And they'll be like, oh, and I'm playing for this guy? So I'll answer it the same way, but he's probably not available. I don't even know if he wants to coach anymore, right? But that's because, the money he's making now, that's a pretty cushy job for the amount of money he's making. But again,
well, if you're going to talk to Pete Carroll, maybe why not see if Nick Saban will do it? I'm kind of with you.
Right? I mean, okay, Pete Carroll, and again, it's like a retread. Saban's not a retread coach. He's been coaching. He's only been out a year. But I don't know if that guy is out there, like a head coach. Instead of saying, I got to have this coordinator or that coordinator who has never been a head coach, right? And then you're taking a chance. So I don't know. I think anybody they hire, it'll be, no one's going to agree or disagree 100%, right? It's going to be a 50-50 thing. Wow, they don't know what they're doing. Or, wow, that's a good hire. I don't think there'll be a consensus once they do it.
So now does this delay your draft prep, Mickey, now that you've got to do head coach prep and staff prep?
No, I don't think so, because you got your scouts. The scouts will go to the Senior Bowl here in, a week and a half or so, and they'll do all the legwork. Because remember, even though you have a coaching staff, they really don't get into the draft until, kind of around the Senior Bowl, and then they start analyzing things. So, yeah, I don't think that, makes a big difference one way or another. And the other thing, and this is what people misunderstand. If the Cowboys head coach wants to be involved in the draft, wants to do his homework, wants to make his opinion known, Jerry will listen to it. But too many times the head coach that they've had would go, well, yeah, whatever you want to do. And then it makes it look like, Jerry's running the draft. Will McClay's done a pretty darn good job preparing this team for a draft. If you look at, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Guyton or not, but look at the first round draft choices before that. When Jason Garrett said, we got to rebuild the offensive line in his first year, they drafted Tyron Smith. In the third year, they drafted Frederick. And then they drafted Zach Martin. They rebuilt the offensive line because that was Jason Garrett's priority. So they listened to him. But you got to be willing to put yourself on the line to be either right or wrong. And a lot of head coaches, they don't want to get into that. Well, yeah, that was your pick, and you don't want to, lay it on the line to be able to do that. So they'll listen, and if the head coach wants to put his opinion on the line.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Can we start then willing Ashton Genty into existence on the Cowboys? Like, it's too good of a story, Mickey. I mean, he's from right down the street. Like, he's so good. They really need a running back. It would just be, I want it so bad. Like, can you start, like, can you get on board with me? Like you did that with Micah Parsons, and everyone appreciates that. We need you to do it with Ashton Genty.
Well, I mean, it was a good story with Deuce Vaughn. How's that turned out so far?
Oh, look, we're talking about different things here, Mickey. I mean,
well, I know, but it's a running back that everybody said, "Oh, what a great story!" Right? Great story, good, but does he fit? And what else is available when you get to that spot? I think you got to consider that.
Indeed. Let's make Dak Prescott better, giving him an elite running back, which I believe Ashton Genty should be job 1 or 2. Now,
you're happy with the wide receivers?
I'm happy.
No.
I'm way happier with the wide receivers than I am with the running backs, though.
Well, who's the next wide receiver after CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, see, look, that's problem B. Problem A is restoring the running game, which the Cowboys have been built on for 100 years or 6.
They ran for 1,000 yards this year.
Oh, look, there's 17 games. Like, give me a dude who's a 1,500-yard potential guy in Ashton Genty. That's what I want.
And you're sure of that?
Look, no one's sure of anything, but
well, let's put it this way: will you put your job on the line for that?
If I was working for the Cowboys, I certainly would. But I'm not now, so I don't have to. But, yes, I would. I would do it. I believe that strongly in him. He's a superstar. So.
Well, we'll see. Then if he's that good, he's not going to last till 12.
Well, fortunately, there's a bunch of dumb teams that don't think running backs matter anymore. So I'm hoping that 11 of them.
I don't think that's true anymore. I think people are looking at what Detroit did with Jahmyr Gibbs and going, oh, all right, that was a pretty good first-round pick, right?
Yeah.
He
was picked at 12, though.
Well, all right.
So
we'll see how that turns out. I just don't think you can go into the draft and say, that's the guy we're taking, right?
No,
then
I know.
You're going to get caught short.
If they get Kelvin Banks or Tedero McMillan or Luther Burden or Cameron Williams, I mean, there's a lot of guys that would help him out a lot. But
how about that other 11 at Penn State?
Oh yeah, Abdul Carter. That'd be awesome. I don't think he's going to make it that far either, though.
No, and I've heard that maybe he's a little bit of a prima donna. I don't know if you can use 2 11s as prima donnas.
Yeah, I don't know. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, enjoy the Stars game.
I will. Take care.
All right. That's Mickey Spagnola here on 365 Sports. We're going to put that video up on Catalina's Cowboys Corner, which is the new Cowboys podcast that I'm doing, and I'm trying to cross-promote, and I'm not good at it. Craig, we're really bad at the like and subscribe, hit here for this. We're just not good at it. It's not in our nature.
Well, we probably should improve on that.
We should.
Yeah. Pretty simple. Just hit that like and subscribe button if you would. That'd be great. We'd appreciate it.
And please do that on all the channels that we're associated with. There's links to them on the main channel. We would love it. Anyway, the top 5 comes up next, and then we're out of here. This is 365 Sports.
Check out my go-to polo from Flag and Anthem. It's everything you want in a golf polo, but you can wear it at a dinner, to a barbecue, whatever your plans are. It's extremely soft, super comfortable. Check it out, flagandanthem.com.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Today, top 5 things that are actually wrong with the Cowboys. Now, people like to point fingers at a lot of different things that are going on with this team, but I'll tell you, here are the 5 things that they need to focus on if they're going to change anything. But let's just face it. Life's not fair and things never change. So, again, this is mostly theoretical and pie in the sky nonsense. But number 5, offensive line are likely losing this man. Hall of Famer, all pro, like every great thing you want to say about Zach Martin. It is a shame that players like DeMarcus Ware, who did get to win one in Denver, Jason Witten, and now Zach Martin, will all retire without having a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. That's a thing that's going to happen. It's very, very, very sad. But those 3 guys are Hall of Famers. Those 3 guys are people who represented the team so well. But let's look at the current offensive line. They do have some young talent there. Cooper Beebe is going to be very good at center. Tyler Smith's already one of the elite players. Tyler Guyton, probably not a left tackle, more of a right tackle, but he's just a rookie. Terrence Steele, he'll be there. He's fine, but we're not going to write love sonnets about Terrence Steele. And then right guard, this guy's position, will be open. And right now it looks like that could be Brock Hoffman, who played pretty well down the stretch. But
that is something that needs to get fixed. They need continuity. They need people playing the right positions that they're going to have. That's a huge thing for the Cowboys moving forward. And before they fix anything else, including that running back position, they need to make sure they've got a good plan on the offensive line. And again, running back is not on here because it's freaking obvious that they don't have a running back. That's an easy problem to solve. You don't have one, go freaking get one. Sorry, I'm yelling. I'm already yelling. We're on number 5. I'm already yelling. I'm sorry. I'm passionate. It's what I am. It's an Italian thing. Number 4, Dak in the playoffs. Dak regular season, perfectly serviceable, wonderful quarterback, does a lot of cool things. When the clock turns to January, the calendar turns to January, this is the Dak you get. This guy needs to go away. And how does this guy go away? You make sure he's the only excuse that you have. But that's not what they've done. They've not given him elite talent at running back for very long. They've not given him a second wide receiver. They've kind of given him some good tight ends. They've kind of given him a good offensive line. They've kind of given him a good defense, but they haven't gone all out for that. They have not done everything they can to maximize the Dak Prescott experiment. And now they're on the hook for $60 million a year for at least the next 2 years before they can even think about getting out of the Dak Prescott business. So the next 2 or 3 years, every single move you make should be about eliminating this Dak right here and turning it into the Dak that you think he can be. This guy, these eyes have to go. You can't have that anymore. And the only way that you're going to be successful in the short term, because Dak Prescott, mark my words, if anybody tells you, if you're watching any kind of talking head from anywhere else that says the Cowboys will move on from Dak Prescott, that year will be 2027 or later. More than likely later. He is not going to be anybody else's quarterback but the Dallas Cowboys. That is a stupid thing that people say. The contract locks him in. It's $100 million in dead money if they trade him, plus he has a full no-trade clause. So they're not trading him to the Browns, because who in their right mind would get traded to the Browns if they had the ability to stop it? Number 3, lack of identity. Why did I put Parks and Rec's Ann Perkins on here? Well, and Garrett knows this plot line. Emery knows this plot line. For a while on Parks and Rec, Ann Perkins took on the personality of whoever she was dating, whether it be Andy or Chris Traeger or Tom. Like, whoever it was, she kind of adopted their personality. And then at one point she decided, I'm going to be my own person. Now, some people think that Jerry Jones is one of one. And in a lot of regards he is. But the problem is the Cowboys are whoever they kind of want to be or whoever they're with at that moment, as opposed to having a full identity of what they want for their defense and adapt well within that. They don't really know. They just kind of hop from system to system. They don't really, they don't stay long enough in one. They don't really develop. They don't necessarily draft specifically for that. The 49ers are a good example of this. They know who they're going to be. They know how they're going to draft players to be in that. The Cowboys just kind of put everything together and hope that it works. But if you have an identity, and even though that has to be updated and changes throughout era, you can stick to that identity. I think the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in so long under a great coach like Mike Tomlin, is that he has slightly changed their identity enough to where they've gotten away from who they are. And that's what they need to be, is the Steelers. Go be a power running team who can win in the cold and has a quarterback who's tougher than nails. That's how you've done in the past. That's how you're going to do it in the future. Cowboys, find balance, make everything about supporting cast around the quarterback, and everything will work out fine. Number 2, believing their own myths. This is Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan was not real, but neither was Babe the Blue Ox. But this is Jerry Jones and how he's running things with the Cowboys in his own mind. But it's been 30 years since they've won a Super Bowl, been to the NFC Championship game, all those things. And part of that is because he believes the myth of like he's still that wildcatter. The guy that took the big chance on buying the Cowboys. The guy that took the big chances on throwing caution to the wind with the NFL over the policies. All that stuff worked. But lately, he's been totally risk adverse. He's not chopping down trees. He's letting the forest grow up. This isn't Paul Bunyan. He's not even a lumberjack right now. He used to be. He's not anymore. And that's the thing he's failed to realize, and something I'm not sure he will ever realize. And number one, Jerry doesn't pay his coaches. The Cowboys, for all the money they have, and the coaches don't count against the salary cap, they do not pay coaches well, which, considering they're the most valuable sports franchise in the world, is pretty shameful. I'm not saying go and break the bank and triple what you're paying a coach, but Jerry has a weird idea about the coach's value to a team. And it's because of the initial Jimmy Johnson thing, which their personal beef is squashed, but the emotional scars still live in Jerry because he didn't get what he felt was proper credit for the Super Bowl wins when Jimmy was there. So, because of this, he doesn't pay coaches because even though he wants them to succeed, he's got a psychological block that makes him want to keep them in their place. And I just don't think that's how the business works anymore. So, Jerry, start paying your coaches a little bit more, and I guarantee you'll get better coaches. Just saying. Pretty simple. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And I can't tell you how many times in my just short 44 years on this earth, I'm barely over a teenager, that I have seen people not understand why they don't get quality when they pay nothing. Jerry, pay an elite coach and you'll get elite results. It's as simple as that. That's going to do it for us. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We were chock full. Please, as I cross promote, subscribe to the Triple Option channel and to Catalina's Cowboys Corner. These are all that I have. They're like my children. So please, help me support my children. Help me, please. Thank you. Thank you from Smokey. Thank you from Craig. Thanks to Joe Theismann, Sam Kahn, Graham Harrell, John Talty, and Mickey Spagnola. This has been 365 Sports. We will see you tomorrow.